And lo, the Lord said unto the Israelites, Look unto the heavens, and you shall see a news review program to rival the greatest wonders of the earth. This is the Onion Week in Review. As a front of dense, frigid air and snow showers brought sub-zero temperatures to much of the country this week, Canton, Ohio residents noted that the blanketing of snow they had received created the illusion that their town was not a total shithole. Residents added that unlike its typical depressing reality, the snow-cloaked town actually looked halfway livable.
Canton is usually a miserable little dump. But, you know, when that first snow fell and, covered everything in a layer of white powder, for about 5 minutes, it was like not everything I saw depressed the living out of me.
Reports from locals also confirmed that for a brief period, the streets, parks, and buildings around them gave the surprising impression of not being a run-down, heartbreaking excuse for a hometown.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. This is talk radio that you control. Give us a call. The phone number is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, we've got me, Stu,
Riley,
and Richie Rich.
And I guess the biggest news on my mind tonight is that Ross Ulbricht has been freed from his captivity.
That's definitely huge news. Like, for me, I'm very jaded when it comes to these so-called politicians, especially Humpty Trumpty, because I don't like Trump and I don't like Biden.
Is that what we're calling him now? Humpty Trumpty?
That's what I like to call him.
All right.
Because all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put Humpty Trumpty back together again. But anyway.
I like Trumpykins.
There you go.
That's my pet name for him.
Trumpykins works too. But I'm not a fan of either of them. I think Biden is, in worse in some ways than Trump, and Trump was worse in some ways than Biden. But I'm really glad that he really freed us if I can talk tonight. I did have a drink with dinner, so.
Yeah, he granted him a full presidential pardon.
He didn't just commute the sentence, he granted him a full pardon. That really surprised me. I was taken aback by that, but I'm also really pleased that he got it done.
This is the problem only going 2 nights a week on weekends, because I feel like this is old news already.
Yeah, it is kind of old news.
This was Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're well past this.
This is the first show since it happened, though.
Really? There was no live show last night? I didn't listen. I didn't see an archive.
No. Bonnie was under the weather. And
Yep.
Well, that makes sense. So why didn't know what happened on last night's show?
So I guess more accurately, though, you could say that instead of that being wonderful news, it's the end of really bad, 11 years long, really bad news.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a thing that should have never happened in the first place.
Oh, definitely. Like, he got railroaded by the state for sure. Life plus 40 years, or was it 140 years? I don't remember which. But
double life plus 40.
There you go. 2 life sentences plus 40 years.
See, that's an absurd sentence for just programming a website.
And during his sentencing, the judge felt it important to point out that his ideology was a threat to something, and that she didn't like it. So
I mean, she's not wrong. Freedom, the ideology of freedom and liberty is a threat to the state and the government.
Of course it is. And right. when he's creating a place to sell things that the so-called government people don't like, they're going to get all pissy about it.
Yep. I personally found the ideas of liberty probably 5 months after he was arrested.
Okay.
So that was kind of a big story, and so this has always been one that I followed pretty closely.
Yeah. And, ironically, I had friends who lost money shopping on the Silk Road. Mm-hmm. Because despite its free aspect of it, there was still the possibility to get scammed, because scammers exist everywhere. And
they do.
Dude, you can get your drugs for Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, how do I get Bitcoin? Well, here, wire money to this weird European bank account and then wait.
Yeah.
That's the way it was back then. And he did. I don't know how much Bitcoin he had.
Easier.
Black markets definitely always have their risks. And I think most people who participate are aware of those.
But in the early times, there was some scammers, but then they started with the ratings and the reviews, and you could buy from reputable sources who other people said delivered your drugs or whatever you were buying, on time and as it should.
I found a couple of international news stories, neither of which I feel like reading online. One of them was not so favorable towards the release of Ross, and the other was kind of neutral. It was
well. The reason for that is because he was slammed in the mainstream media as well, right? Like in libertarian circles, we go, he was convicted of a double life plus 40 for building a website.
They made this guy into a monster of a bad guy when he was just
murder for hire.
A kid that wanted to sell some mushrooms on the internet for Bitcoin.
Well, the murder for hire charge is obviously dropped.
Right, but that's the story that the media runs with.
Of course.
So when they release him...
They want to sensationalize the headlines and make him seem like an absolutely horrible human being.
Right.
How dare Trump free a horrible human being?
And that's why most people still think it was a bad idea to free him, because they go like, he let this hitman guy go, this drug dealer, this kingpin, and that's still the narrative that the mainstream media runs with. And libertarians and anarchists and us folks, we're like, no, he was just a dude who built a website.
Yep. Well, after 11 years in prison, he's finally out. A lot of that time in solitary confinement for refusing to take part in beating up some prisoner. So they had to put him in the hole so that the other prisoners wouldn't beat him up.
Even the Ian situation, right? Like we go like, oh, he was just selling Bitcoin. He's in prison for 8 years just for selling Bitcoin.
We do that.
Right, but everyone else goes, no, it's because he facilitated a romance scam and stole money from old people. Right, that's the narrative outside of our circle.
It is, and it's because the media wants to tell that story. It's the only way they're going to sell their headlines and sell news. Yep. They can lie about Ian and say, oh, well, he was a romance scammer.
Right, but he's not going to make friends outside of our circles with everyone reading that narrative.
Right.
Well, right now, we've got Dave Ridley in New Hampshire on the line. Dave, what's on your mind tonight?
Hey, guys. I'm actually visiting Colorado right now, but I have a piece of news for you either way.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the place where I heard about Ross Ulbricht's pardon was actually a website called allsides.com. So for 5 years, I've just sort of been pining for and wishing someone would set up a sort of an actual neutral news website that really you could rely on. And I think actually All Sides is it. And one of the indicators that they can be relied on. So what they'll do is they'll pull in news from a lot of different media organizations like Reuters or CNN or Reason Magazine or whatever.
Isn't Reuters and the AP supposed to be the neutral source?
They're supposed to be.
Like they're the ones, just the facts, and then everyone else takes it and editorializes.
Here's why I know that I like All Sides. Whenever they report something from Associated Press, they put in a disclaimer that it is leftist biased.
Okay.
Huh.
Oh, that's
now. They also, if they report something from National Review, they'll put in a disclaimer that it's right-wing bias. And if it comes from Reason, they call it centrist. So these are accurate representations. They do, by the way, call Reuters centrist. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not.
Okay.
And they write their own summary. This is what's so great. The All Sides writers themselves actually will try to write some kind of a neutral summary. I have never really caught them violating neutrality in their summaries, although I think they do sometimes identify themselves as leftists or rightists when they write an article.
Interesting.
So they wrote an article about Ross Ulbricht?
I don't think they wrote it. I think they forwarded it from somewhere else and also summarized it.
Was it fairly neutral then, or did it still kind of cast allegations that are...
I think the article I read, and I don't remember where it was from, but the article I read was fairly neutral. And then I read another one from Reason Magazine, which was, of course, pro-Ross. But again, they make clear where everybody's coming from, more or less. Left, right, and center kind of covers it all. It'd be better to have two dimensions than one, but we know it's a start.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, fair. When I read any news article, I kind of have in my mind where the bias is coming from, but also I just read for the facts. Yeah. Right? Like, these are the facts. And this again is what I tell people, especially when it comes to like InfoWars and Alex Jones. Right, he sprinkles in a lot of sensationalism, but all of his facts are like documented.
Yeah, well, the way you the way you get some value out of that, the way you separate the signal from the noise in that message is to just look for what contradicts. And then when you find, you know, you go and look up all the stuff he says.
Yeah.
And then you see what you can back up and what, you know. And
that's the thing.
A lot of contradictions, and those things you can go ahead and eject.
A lot of it is like sourced, right? He's got his primary sources below the article, and if you want to click through like a Wikipedia page, you just click to the primary source.
Or do your own search.
Fine, but if the primary source is there's no reason to look for other sources. Like that's where the news is derived.
That's true.
If he's editorializing a study, right, and you got like the PDF of the paper right there, and you just read the paper of the study.
Those are definitely good places to start.
Right. And then you get the facts, and you go like, okay, you know, the rest of it is sensational, but like, yeah, maybe they are putting in the water stuff in the water that makes the frogs gay.
Yeah, or it messes with hormonal balances of animals.
Right.
It does. More accurate. But
that's the sensationalism.
But when he says it makes the frogs gay, we get wonderful internet memes.
Indeed.
Right. Or when he said, you know, your lights are spying on you, right? Well, the Hue lights and all the smart bulbs, they got the microphone in it to listen to you. So they're not really spying on you, but they have the capacity to listen to whatever you're putting out there, and that goes to some central server to activate the you know what the light's about to do. So it's sensational, but there's always a hint of truth if you dig deep enough.
Well, we all carry spies with us in our pocket daily,
which is why I don't mind having Alexa in my house.
Yep, same here.
Like if you've got the cell phone, we're on the same page, and my life is a lot more convenient.
Yep. Do you have anything else, Dave?
Well, I guess since I think they're so great, I should sing a jingle for them so everyone can remember their name.
Awesome.
Allsides.com.
That was great, Dave.
There you go.
Thanks for the call. Anyways, tonight we have a few news stories we can do. Richie has brought in a few, and I told him to go ahead and pick one out. You got one ready to go?
I'll do the one that you said you wanted to do, and this is from Reason Magazine, so center bias.
A reputable news source.
There you go.
You said it was from Reason?
Yeah.
Okay.
So per all side, right? Reason is a centrist source, and per Riley over here, it's a reputable news source. Here's how police are being trained to deal with incels.
So just for the listeners who don't know, incels are people who are involuntarily celibate. In other words, they believe that they are forced to not have sex.
Okay. Can we just call them losers? Is that?
Yeah, we can call them losers.
Virgin. I mean, if it's involuntary, right? Like
Yeah.
You can be voluntarily celibate. Some men in the incel community want the state to intervene in their dating lives.
Whoa.
These sexually frustrated men believe that society is biased against them. So they should be given a government-issued girlfriend.
What?
That's absurd. That's ridiculous.
We're getting into
just order one from Thailand like everybody else.
Yeah.
Check the male-female before you do.
Yeah.
Incels have attracted attention from the authorities, just not in the way they would like. Or, if you wanted like a government-issued girlfriend, like go into the military, right? Chicks dig a guy in uniform. I rarely ever see those dudes having any issues getting at least one. How faithful they are is questionable.
Like there are a lot of routes you could go that would be easier than petitioning your government to give you a girlfriend.
Women love a man in uniform, that's for sure.
I don't know, man. If you're that desperate, right? Like hit the gym.
Yeah.
Right? Like work on yourself.
Yep. Get yourself a haircut. Buy some nice clothes.
You know what also helps? Deodorant.
Yeah.
Getting offline?
Yeah, we'll see. This week, the California Specialized Training Institute is advertising a training session for police across the state who want to learn more about domestic terrorism alongside anarchism, radical environmentalism, white supremacy, and the sovereign citizen movement. The flyer lists involuntarily celibate extremists as one of the threats. It went viral after independent journalist Ken Klippenstein shared it on social media. For several years now, U.S. authorities have treated incel-related mass shootings as a serious security risk. The phenomenon of incel counterterrorism is an interesting window into how the U.S. government makes sense of newfangled threats and how far its surveillance reach goes.
Oh my gosh.
The training session this week is hosted by the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center, one of the many fusion centers created by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to share intelligence between local and federal law enforcement. Although the Fusion Center has not yet responded to a California Public Records Act request for course materials, the law gives it 10 days to do so. Other leaked documents hint at what the class might teach. In 2020, hackers released millions of Fusion Center documents in an incident known as Blue Leaks. Some of these documents, including federal intelligence bulletins and educational materials on the incel menace. The Colorado Information Analysis Center's 2019 slideshow on violent extremism, like the Orange County class on terrorism, lists incels alongside white supremacists, black separatists, anarchists, sovereign citizens, environmentalists, and anti-abortionists. It defines incel ideology as the belief that women cannot be trusted and are not entirely human, but robot-like androids who only crave sex with attractive men.
Wow. That's absurd.
They believe they are ugly and no amount of self-improvement will attract women. They want access to women's bodies without their input. Here's why it's absurd, right? Because yes, women would rather procreate with attractive men, and men would rather procreate with attractive women.
Yes.
Like, that's how it works.
Yep.
What you're attracted to, we can debate, and that is a matter of opinion, so it's not really worth talking about, but it varies from person to person. And the problem with incels is generally they're low-quality mates, and they want a high-quality mate.
Yeah, they're 2 shooting for a 10.
Right.
Yep, you got to set your standards a bit lower there.
Or boost yourself up to a 10. Right? Like, work on your personality.
Develop some hobbies.
Maybe take some acting classes so you get used to, like, talking to people differently than how you are. And again, work on yourself. Good grooming, right? Get that haircut. Shave more regularly. Use deodorant. Dress nicely.
Shower.
Go to the gym. Yes, please. Do all the things that would attract, a higher quality mate if you're a 2, right? If you get yourself in order, you can go from a 2 to like a 6 really easily. You don't have to stay at 2. But if you're in your basement drinking Mountain Dew, eating Doritos, and complaining on the internet, you're not getting very far, man.
No, you're really not.
My suggestion would really just to be not to worry about it and read a lot of books.
Okay. You can increase your intelligence too, but a lot of them probably think they're really smart. And you might find a girl that's into that.
Yeah, we all think we're really smart, don't we?
We do. We really do think we're smart.
Maybe, but you can be a dummy working like, a normal retail job and still attract the females if you do some of the other stuff, right? And not all of them are attracted to book smart people.
Yeah,
doesn't happen, right? Especially with the stereotype of they only want the bad boys. Well, present as a bad boy then, right? If that's who you want to attract, present that. Lose the neck beard and throw away the fedora. As possible ways to deal with incels, the slideshow suggests intervention by their online community, authorities, and acquaintances. The next slide cites the case of a Utah man who was sentenced to prison for posting on Facebook that he was planning on shooting up a public place and killing as many girls as I see. Law enforcement puts a lot of energy, perhaps more than the public realizes, into tracking down violent online fantasies. In August 2019, the Portland Police Bureau Criminal Intelligence Unit put out a bulletin seeking information on a Reddit user who wrote and then deleted, "People ask, are you okay?" But never, "Are you planning to commit mass murder at the Black Lives Matter march in downtown Portland, Oregon on August 18, 2019 at 1900 local time with a Ruger 5.56 AR-15 style rifle and ammunition purchased from Northeast Arms in Salem, Oregon?" Glad I got that out.
Very specific.
The bulletin said that the user is believed to be 13-year-old going into 8th grade, includes his alleged photos, and report that he had posted content consistent with the incel movement. So again, 13-year-old incel, like, dude, you're not even supposed to be getting laid yet. Like, give it a couple years.
Yeah, give it a couple years.
Find a girl to hold hands with.
Hold hands first. Get to know a girl. Then you can lay with her.
And here's some unsolicited advice, because this was from a buddy of mine who had like no problem with the chicks, and he was in high school at the time. And he's like, dude, I always talk to the ugly chicks. Like, why would you do that? It's like, because when they get older, they'll be cute and they'll remember me. So like, and again, no problem getting ladies from his perspective. So if you're in that age range and like, there's a chick over there that might not be your standard now, maybe the friend zone's worthy of riding out for a few years and see what it turns into.
Yeah, 5 years changes a lot.
There you go. In May 2020, the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center uploaded a memo from Verizon about a Yahoo Answers user who posted that he felt like bringing a gun to school because it's white and racially bullied on a daily basis. And he called an incel loser. The memo includes a user's name, date of birth, email address, and IP address, which placed him somewhere in Canada. Verizon did not respond to requests for comment. The first known act of a real-life incel violence was a Isla Vista massacre on May 2014, when a man named Elliot Rogers posted a YouTube video complaining about his virginity, then committed a series of murders around a local college campus. Copycat attackers, who all named Roger as their hero, shot up an Oregon community college in October 2015, ran over Toronto shoppers in April 2018, and shot up a Tallahassee yoga studio in November of 2018. See, if you're going to go to the yoga studio, just go and do yoga.
Yeah.
Right?
There are lots of women doing yoga. You can meet one of them.
You could absolutely meet one of them. And if you're not like creepy about it, right, you can get in there. But judging by the volume of bulletins on Blue Leaks, law enforcement interest in incels really pick up after May 2019, when the FBI issued an intelligence bulletin stating that violent incel rhetoric expressed online in incel community forums likely is partially responsible for some individual incels' escalation from grievance to violent, physical, and revengeful acts. The bulletin cites Reddit posts and memes about Stacy's and Chad's, along with examples of real-life incel attacks. In June 2019, the U.S. military made personnel sit through a briefing on incel threats, which included images of those same memes. A few months later, the U.S. Secret Service issued a public report on mass shooters, stating that many attackers' beliefs were multifaceted and touched on a range of issues, including white supremacy, anti-Semitism, conspiracy theories, sovereign citizens, animal rights, and the incel movement. FBI Director Christopher Wray later described this phenomenon as attackers picking from a salad bar of ideologies in testimony to Congress. And in September 2019, the FBI issued an infamous intelligence bulletin warning that the new Joker movie had inspired online threats from the incel community and a subset community known as Clown Cell.
Oh, wow.
Fusion centers in Fort Worth, Texas, Austin, Texas, and Central Florida all distributed up their own bulletins on the potential for Joker-related violence. And it goes on.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm scared enough to need a whole task force. What do you think? Give us a call. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
If you're looking for work, you know the math. There are many more applicants than openings, so you need to stand out, not blend into the blah, blah, blah your interviewer is hearing from your competition. Here's a tip. In your interview, you will be judged more by the questions you ask than the answers you give. Yes, do anticipate the obvious job interview questions and prepare concise, insightful, glass half full sounding responses. And you should interview your interviewer. Seem genuinely curious about what will help get results. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. You want to cut through the clutter. For more tips for job seekers and making all the other conversations you have more productive, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Mitch McCann. A looming trade war between the United States and Colombia has been avoided after Colombia agreed to allow its citizens removed from the US to arrive in American military planes. It follows a dramatic back and forth between Colombia's president and Donald Trump, who threatened to impose significant trade sanctions and visa restrictions. The White House released a statement late Sunday saying that Colombia had agreed to all of the president's terms after Donald Trump threatened significant sanctions on Colombia, including 50% tariffs and visa sanctions on government officials. The disagreement started after Mr. Trump claimed that Colombia's president was not allowing plane loads of Colombian citizens deported from the US to land back in their home country. Earlier, President Gustavo Petro had said that a migrant is not a criminal and must be treated with the dignity that a human being deserves. That is why I returned the US military planes that were carrying Colombian migrants. The US is Colombia's largest trading partner, and hours later, its foreign minister announced, "We have overcome the impasse with the United States government." Leaders have gathered at the United Nations to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. The discovery of the Nazi camp towards the end of World War II remains one of the most powerful symbols of the horrors of the Holocaust. Sally Patterson reports from New York.
The ceremony remembered the 6 million people murdered because they were Jewish, as well as Roma and Sinti victims, people with disabilities, and LGBTQI groups. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the General Assembly that remembrance is not only a moral act, but a call to action. A key theme in this year's commemoration was the rise in anti-Semitism around the world. That's at least in part linked to the Israel-Hamas war.
And the United Nations Security Council on Monday pledged its full support for UN peacekeeping in the Democratic Republic of Congo as fighting in the DRC intensified in recent days. In a statement, the Council says attacks against peacekeepers may constitute war crimes. 6 UN peacekeepers have been killed since the fighting with M23 rebels escalated. Jody Jacobs has more from the UN in New York.
The UN Security Council has condemned in the strongest terms ongoing advances by the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On Sunday, the Council held an urgent meeting following the deaths of 6 UN peacekeepers. In a statement released on Monday morning, the Council called on Rwanda and the DRC to return to diplomatic talks to achieve a lasting and peaceful resolution. The Council has also demanded that the ongoing offensive and advances towards Goma stop immediately. As the fighting intensifies, the UN has now also been forced to temporarily relocate non-essential staff from the area.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio you control. Give us a call. Get your thoughts and opinions on the radio. Sorry, you're still muted. I was going to do this read first. Are you tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites? Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Social.freetalklive.com. In the studio tonight, you've got me, Stu.
Riley.
And Richie Rich.
It's my audio. Never mind, my audio is not weird. It just sounded weird for a second.
Most recently, we were talking about police training for dealing with incels, and we were talking about incels specifically.
Any opinion on the other categories of people on that list?
Well, to me, it's concerning that they just put those people all
the anarchists and sovereign citizens
into one training group. And so
it's a little weird.
So I heard some talk in that article about some of it coming out. How much of that is out, and have you seen any of it?
What do you mean be more specific with the question. What's coming out?
The material covered inside of that training program.
Oh, that's the thing. They don't the California one. They're starting the training, but they haven't gotten the records request processed.
Okay.
So they tried to get the material and weren't able to on the publication date. So all this other stuff that they're talking about is from like the Colorado and the Utah trainings with similar materials. So the current one in California isn't available yet.
Interesting.
But it'll probably be similar, right? They're going to shoot up the school.
Well, yeah, they're doing this in the fusion centers, right? Which is where your local government works with the federal government in order to either
share information.
Yeah.
The shooter was known to us. He was on our list. We had been monitoring for several years.
That's right. And and we supplied him with a lot of stuff too, huh? Weird.
But they're not going to tell you that. They don't want to tell you that, we supplied him with a lot of stuff, because then it looks suspicious that the government's supplying things to these people.
They already do look suspicious. Every time they say he was known to us, you're already suspicious. Well, why didn't you do anything then? Why didn't you question him then?
Sure, he actually committed a crime first.
Monitor him. If he walks down the street with a backpack or a guitar case, and since you're monitoring him, you notice like, he hasn't been taking any guitar lessons. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something else in the case.
About that, Richie Rich, because they don't think that way.
Well, then they'd have to leave the office.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got a nice coffee machine there.
They're too busy monitoring online chatter.
Yeah.
From their desks.
Yep.
Recording the Free Talk Live radio broadcast.
They might
see if they can catch us on something else.
They got to make sure that their favorite kingpin is still going to stay in a cage.
Whatever. Yeah. Do you want me to continue this article? There's still a little ways to go. I mean, like 3 paragraphs.
If you got more about that,
there's only 3 paragraphs, as long as we don't have callers. To round out the hodgepodge of unrelated dangers, the bulletin also mentioned the threat of Islamic State group, car ramming, and drug-laced Halloween candy.
Wow.
I thought that one was like busted a long time ago.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah,
but
they're still doing that? Jeez.
Were they ever doing it?
No, I mean just the scare tactic of it.
Yeah, every Halloween there's a new generation, a new group of kids to scare.
I'm sure nobody is willingly giving your kids edibles.
Be careful with saying nobody, because we know nobody.
Yeah, we do know nobody.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that though.
He definitely has some edibles though.
He wouldn't give them away.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, he wouldn't give them to some kids.
Not to kids. He might give them to his friends.
All right. It cites a 2018 report about an Ohio child who had meth poisoning after trick-or-treating. The police later arrested, anybody?
His dad?
Close, yeah, his parents.
Oh.
Concluding that the drug did not come from Halloween candy. And a 2019 article about Florida preteens who accidentally ate marijuana edibles at school. Now, that would be a good place to do it, right? If you were like the cafeteria lady.
Yeah.
And just wanted to mess with some kids. you giving me the side eye of the last time.
No,
have fun taking your exam now, boy.
You messed with the wrong person. Enjoy your exams, my friend.
You're not going to be so hyper in about 30 minutes.
Are you, kid? The Fusion Center is an incredibly powerful system for disseminating information to law enforcement. When a bulletin goes out, police across America jump to attention. But all that information is not always put together in a coherent way. Oh, you don't say. A Senate report in 2012 concluded that fusion centers had forwarded intelligence of uneven quality, oftentimes shoddy, rarely timely, sometimes endangering citizens' civil liberties and Privacy Act protections, occasionally taken from already published public sources, more often than not, unrelated to terrorism.
Well,
and that's the end of the article.
I am shocked and horrified that goes on.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about the best and brightest among us. How could this kind of incompetency happen? It's beyond me.
Again, it's the low-hanging fruit, man. Like, why put in any effort to do actual police work?
Yeah.
When there's, easy stuff to go after.
Yeah. Or that's right. When you can just make something up from your computer while eating donuts.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Be aware of that single dude around you that's leering lasciviously, acting creepily, maybe wearing a trench coat in the summertime. Like that's an incel terror attack waiting to happen.
Yeah. No, I was friends with some of those kids, and they were neither incels or going to attack anybody.
Okay. The trench coat wearers or the Lear lasciviously?
Yeah, the trench coat kids.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I bought one when I moved to Washington because, hey, it's Washington and it's cold.
Yeah, I always figured I'd wear one if it were functional. But,
yeah.
But it only needs to go slightly past your waist, otherwise it's kind of in the way. Unless you're talking about a raincoat. I've got a raincoat that's that long.
Okay.
But
I mean, mine was a full-length leather one, but I sprayed it down with, water protectant.
So, yeah, and that was kind of my problem with it, too, is that you have to do that type of maintenance on it. Otherwise, you wear it out in the rain, it's just going to shrivel up, and it'll be a mess.
Yeah.
How often do you have to spray a leather jacket with water protectant?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Depends on what,
depends on
weekly or monthly.
Yeah.
But it's leather, right? So, I mean, leather requires maintenance anyway if you want to keep it soft. So I had like the leather conditioner, the rain protection, and, I didn't need it in the summertime, right? So when it was wintertime, you pull it out of the closet, you oil it up, condition it, put some of that rain protectant on it, then see what happens. It didn't get ruined until I left it in storage for too long.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, tonight we talked a little bit also about the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht, and I've got another story related to pardons. This one, though, is about the preemptive pardon of Anthony Fauci.
Okay.
I guess Biden wanted to protect the dude distributing the Fauci ouchies.
I guess so. And that's the thing with preemptive pardons, right? Like, there's
a presumption of guilt.
They haven't been accused of a crime, exactly, right. But there's like rumors floating, right?
There's rumors floating around. Number one, there's a presumption of guilt. That's like people's main concern. Well, why would he get a pardon if he was innocent? But if from Biden's perspective, it was preemptive, and in his words, I'm not going to say this verbatim, but like his words were, he's going to be attacked politically, not because he did anything wrong, but just because, he's against Trump politically. And Trump is going to go after his political opponents for any number of things, right? And if we think back to like what they did to Trump, a lot of the attacks they levied at him, including the impeachments, were trivial in comparison.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like they threw everything at the wall to see what stuck. They're hanging their hat on like 34 felony convictions based on like one act, right? Like, oh, he's a felon because he paid off a stripper.
Yeah.
Right. But like the fear is that he will do the same in retaliation. And in order to prevent that retaliation, we must preemptively pardon these people, because who knows what they may or may not have done trivially. We know that they didn't do any big stuff because they would have been found, they would have been investigated for that. But it's the trivial stuff that Trump might go after.
So I wonder how widespreadly it's known, just the line of questioning that Rand Paul gave Anthony Fauci in, I don't know, Congress or somewhere yes. official looking. And Fauci wasn't very happy about the line of questioning.
Right.
When something like, did you make this disease? And Fauci said no, and that's not what we call it. And so anyways, let's get into the story from Ars Technica.
Another reputable news source.
Absolutely, very reputable.
I think they do okay. With just hours left in office, President Joe Biden has issued a preemptive pardon for Anthony Fauci, America's top infectious disease expert. For nearly 4 decades, Fauci directed the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. He advised 7 presidents, beginning with Ronald Reagan, and among his many accomplishments, played a crucial role in the response to the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Fauci was
which he mishandled.
Yeah, mishandled
the
very
COVID
badly.
pandemic.
Yeah.
Fauci was a leading architect of PEPFAR, the global AIDS response program begun by President George W. Bush that is estimated to have saved 25 million lives. Fauci served as Biden's medical advisor until his retirement at the end of 2022. For more than half a century, Dr. Fauci served our country, Biden said in a statement released this morning. This article is 6 days old. He saved countless lives by managing the government's response to pressing health crises, including HIV/AIDS, as well as the Ebola and Zika viruses. During his tenure as my chief medical advisor, he helped the country tackle a once-in-a-century pandemic. The United States is safer and healthier because of him.
Maybe. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to say because they locked everything down, wouldn't let us try anything alternative to what they had to say.
Yep.
Right?
I think a lot of people would argue with that. But while Fauci was once considered America's doctor and a trusted face of public health responses, he became vilified for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, which deeply divided the country. Though he has been charged with no crime, he has continued to face threats of investigations and charges, particularly from the political right. For instance, Elon Musk, who incoming President Trump has tapped for unofficial federal government positions, has posted several times on social media, "My pronouns are prosecute Fauci."
Right. So that alone is evidence of why Joe Biden would pardon him. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's coming only from the right. It's high-profile individuals attacking him, prosecute him for, right? Where's the accusation? Where's the evidence of a crime? Where's the ties of him to the responsibility of it? Right? If you have all of that, then put that out there. Right? And here's what he did. Here's when he did it. You know, we know this. He was in charge. The buck, even if he wasn't like the doctor in the lab, right? The buck stops with him. He issued the order. You know, any of those things.
Yeah.
And then blast them in the public.
Yeah. Well, I know I know vaguely how that chain of responsibility goes. He funded through the NAIDS, whatever.
Okay.
He funded through that research group that funded another research group, and then that one was, you know, the lab in Wuhan.
And
they were doing, so, like, you know, you heard Rand Paul ask him, "Were you doing gain of function?" And he's like, "No, we weren't doing gain of function." And it's semantics, right? He's just calling it something else. They're just going to rename it the Gulf of Mexico, for example.
Okay. Well, and if that's the case, right, then you can hang him up for perjury.
Yeah.
Right. But I was talking to a friend yesterday a little bit about this, right? And if you want to discuss the funding and taxpayer money going to the research, right, I'm happy to concede that taxpayer money shouldn't be going towards research at all because it's taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Right. But I also think that scientists should be doing research. And I think they should have the right to do whatever research they want as long as they're responsible for the results. So if you tell me that, well, they had to do it in China because they weren't allowed, it was illegal to do it in the United States, I'm like, fine, do it in China then.
Yeah.
Right? Because why is the United States preventing them from doing scientific research?
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky, right? Is when you got to be responsible for what you did.
Well, and I brought this up again, last week with the California wildfires, right? Like, I'm on record as saying I want restitutive justice. I don't want penal justice. I don't want people, peaceful people who aren't a harm to society locked in cages. I want them working toward making good on whatever crime that they committed.
I think that sounds way better than what we have.
It does. But if you go like these California wildfires, right, caused, $100 billion worth of damages, right, or whatever that number is, and it's one guy who committed arson that started it all, right? Like, he's never going to be able to pay that all back. He's never going to be able to make good. It's impossible for one guy to make good on that. So, how do you get the justice, right? And if you're a research facility in China, right, and you're doing whatever medical research you're doing, and a mistake is made and the virus gets out of the research facility, right, you're never going to be able to make good on that. But do you shut down all research because of the possibility? No. You don't stop your neighbor from having a bonfire in his backyard because of the off chance that he might set the entire city on fire, right? That's a ludicrous response to the potential outcome.
What do you think about backyard nukes?
I'm for it.
Okay.
Again, like if it's in your backyard and you've managed to acquire it, right? It's none of my business.
I think I have to take the for position as well. If the alternative is the the tyranny of a
right,
the threat of a jackboot on your throat.
If someone has a backyard nuke and you have to stop them from having it, right? How are you going to do that? If you try to aggress against them, they're going to use the nuke. That's the purpose of having it in your backyard, is to prevent people from aggressing against you.
Hopefully there are some people that know and love that backyard nuke builder and can have a peaceful intervention.
Why would you even need to intervene? It's for his own protection.
Well,
just don't attack him.
I don't know how you
don't try to
could
take
use
it away
one of
from
those
him.
in self-defense.
You just push the button if someone comes to attack you.
Yeah, but nukes are a lot more dangerous
going to destroy
than a gun.
yourself.
What's that?
You're going to destroy yourself.
Yeah, so don't attack me.
Nukes are also more dangerous than a gun. So I don't know, a lot of more dangerous blasts.
Yeah,
radiation.
But the response is don't aggress against the guy, and he doesn't have a reason to use it.
Okay.
Right? If you want to take it away, you have to aggress against him and his property because it's not your nuke to take.
So it's a mutually assured destruction policy down to the individual.
It can be. Why not?
Okay. I think it might work out. I mean, an armed polite society is a polite one.
If you don't want him to activate the nuke, just don't aggress against him. And if you're worried about him using it randomly, like, don't be his neighbor.
You might have people
move
that are
away.
Really polite at that point.
Yeah. If he's crazy, just move away.
Well,
Why would you live next to a crazy guy who might set off a nuke?
Unless you have one too, and you're like, hey, stay in line.
Yeah.
Because I got one too.
If it's that affordable, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't think this stuff is difficult or expensive to build.
Okay. Well, I'll leave that up to you.
I've never tried.
Okay. I'm not building one.
I've only halfway looked at it at all just because I'm curious.
Where are you going to get the uranium?
But I mean, the process is described in a Tom Clancy book. It's not like it's hard to find. So.
Well, hard to find and like affordable are two different things.
Oh yeah, materials wise.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
Like I had a buddy back in the day who like wanted to make LSD, and turns out you really can't just get all the chemicals, and what they have on the streets is more like LSA.
Yeah,
it's a different compound and you could get that stuff online.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, we're going to make LSA instead.
Can you find the process for it though?
Yeah, because they did it.
Yeah, okay.
It's like,
I wonder what the difference between LSD and LSA is.
Look it up, man.
Okay.
It's mostly the chemicals that go into it, because LSD requires like a controlled substance that you have to be a scientist or a chemist, and you have to order it through the government, and it's you can't really find that stuff on the street necessarily, or it's very difficult and very expensive. But LSA, like hardware store and online shopping, will get you everything you need.
Okay.
Okay. Interesting. Well, to continue with this article, it says that since retiring, Fauci has been under federal protection due to death threats on his life and the life of his family. That's right. He had a security detail. I think that
Trump removed it.
That is no more.
Yep.
In issuing the pardon, Biden emphasized that Fauci is not guilty of any wrongdoing. He justified the uncommon pardon by arguing that it is essentially a good conscience effort to protect from a political witch hunt.
There you go.
There you go. Just like Richie said. I believe in the rule of law, and I am optimistic that the strength of our legal institutions will ultimately prevail over politics. But these are exceptional circumstances, and I cannot in good conscience do nothing, Biden said.
It's also my understanding, real quick, that they can go through the entire prosecutorial process, right? They can have an investigation. They can indict him however they want. They can present all that evidence in trial. They can find him guilty, and they just can't punish him, right? So then the question is, like, is it worth going through all that effort, spending all that time, money, and resources to get a guilty verdict on a guy that you can't sentence afterwards?
No.
Because he's already been pardoned.
I mean,
Probably not. It's taxpayer money.
For me, I would say yes, because the information to be publicly known and admitted to
Yeah, but what are the people going to do
of
that
value.
information to? Why would people care?
Putting Fauci in a cage is of little value to me.
Yeah, but the average normal person, the average normal listener out there isn't going to care anymore. The COVID pandemic's over in their minds. Fauci being guilty of something isn't to them an issue.
And if you want the information, just conduct the investigation. And I would say again, if you want to get down to funding, I don't want taxpayer money and my resources going to that, right? But if you do, right, then start a GoFundMe or whatever it is and do your investigation.
I guess the more illegal part, rather than the going out of country to do a program that he wasn't supposed to do, would be the cover up shortly after.
Okay.
Where he told if I'm remembering correctly, he told there's an email that got leaked between him and Peter Daszak saying, we gotta say this was this came out of the wet market.
Okay.
And don't even talk about the lab. And,
yeah. So
and they made a concerted effort to squash any stories in the media.
Yeah. So, and if that's not true and there was a cover up, hang them on that. If that's if making up a story is legal, right, go for it. But there's a lot of things that are legal elsewhere that the United States criminalizes and vice versa, right? And if you're not allowed to do it here, right, then you ought to be able to go elsewhere to do it where you can, right? Even like the cloning of animals, like, oh, you can't do that here. Like, well, other places will let you. So if that's like the line of science you want to follow, you just go where you can do it.
And I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. That's the reason why Guantanamo exists, right? The United States doesn't torture, but you can do that in Cuba. You transfer everybody to Cuba where it's fine to torture and maim people for no crimes and not give them due process.
I'm okay with some societies being okay with torture as well. I don't want to live in one of those. But the Guantanamo things, I'm not okay with the government sponsoring torture of people.
I'm not either, but that's the justification, right? We can't do it here, but we can do it there. So you just move them there to do the bad stuff.
That is,
or scientific research, or whatever it is you want to do.
That was the logic they came up with, I guess.
Right? You want to buy marijuana in New Hampshire? No, you cross the border into like Vermont or Massachusetts or Maine.
Wasn't that
because you can't do it here?
Supposed to be closed down.
I don't know.
14 years ago or something.
I have no idea, but I mean, there's no dispensaries here.
Yeah.
Right? You go elsewhere. You go where it's legal.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Guantanamo? Yeah, it was supposed to be, but it's still operational.
Yeah. Well, I guess they got to have somewhere to do their torture. We'll talk about this some more coming up. Give us a call. Get on the phones. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. Let us know what you're thinking about tonight. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
But we have the opportunity. No one has the opportunity.
Look, just hold on. Just because the slaves can pick the head slave doesn't mean that the slaves are free.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Look, if people actually got up and voted for things, there might actually be some change.
People do actually get up and vote for things, and change always results in the same crap.
What are you going to do that's different by voting?
Two choices between crap sandwiches, man.
You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. On the one hand, you're saying, oh, hardly anybody votes, so you can barely say this is a person of right. And then I say, well, gosh, if people get up and vote, maybe things will change.
Hold on, that was only one thing he brought up.
Here's what I mean.
When people do vote, it doesn't make any difference because of a number of reasons.
People never vote in numbers that could actually reflect what
Why should I vote for any of these thugs? They're killers. They're murderers.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Mitch McCann. A looming trade war between the United States and Colombia has been avoided after Colombia agreed to allow its citizens removed from the US to arrive in American military planes. It follows a dramatic back and forth between Colombia's president and Donald Trump, who threatened to impose significant trade sanctions and visa restrictions. The White House released a statement late Sunday saying that Colombia had agreed to all of the president's terms after Donald Trump threatened significant sanctions on Colombia, including 50% tariffs and visa sanctions on government officials. The disagreement started after Mr. Trump claimed that Colombia's president was not allowing plane loads of Colombian citizens deported from the US to land back in their home country. Earlier, President Gustavo Petro had said that a migrant is not a criminal and must be treated with the dignity that a human being deserves. That is why I returned the US military planes that were carrying Colombian migrants. The US is Colombia's largest trading partner, and hours later, its foreign minister announced, "We have overcome the impasse with the United States government." Leaders have gathered at the United Nations to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. The discovery of the Nazi camp towards the end of World War II remains one of the most powerful symbols of the horrors of the Holocaust. Sally Patterson reports from New York.
The ceremony remembered the 6 million people murdered because they were Jewish, as well as Roma and Sinti victims, people with disabilities, and LGBTQI groups. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the General Assembly that remembrance is not only a moral act, but a call to action. A key theme in this year's commemoration was the rise in anti-Semitism around the world. That's at least in part linked to the Israel-Hamas war.
And the United Nations Security Council on Monday pledged its full support for UN peacekeeping in the Democratic Republic of Congo as fighting in the DRC intensified in recent days. In a statement, the Council says attacks against peacekeepers may constitute war crimes. 6 UN peacekeepers have been killed since the fighting with M23 rebels escalated. Jody Jacobs has more from the UN in New York.
The UN Security Council has condemned in the strongest terms ongoing advances by the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On Sunday, the Council held an urgent meeting following the deaths of 6 UN peacekeepers. In a statement released on Monday morning, the Council called on Rwanda and the DRC to return to diplomatic talks to achieve a lasting and peaceful resolution. The Council has also demanded that the ongoing offensive and advances towards Goma stop immediately. As the fighting intensifies, the UN has now also been forced to temporarily relocate non-essential staff from the area.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on President Donald Trump's decision to freeze immediately all US foreign assistance worldwide. The State Department, now led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, acted on that decision over the weekend. Humanitarian aid groups are stunned and still trying to work out what it all means. Michael Keating is a professor of international political economy at Richmond American University, London.
A lot of it is Christian aid and a lot of it is dispersed through Christian charity. You have to remember most US aid, and it's a massive amount of money, is dispersed not by the US government. So I do wonder about how much of the money is contracted for disbursement by private agencies and whether they can simply freeze it. Because if it was just the government who was dispersing it, that would make sense, right? But if you've got massive, ongoing, decades-long contracts with huge multinational corporations to deliver this aid, can you just freeze it overnight? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, a lot of it is dispersed by Christian charities. And I think his base it does like that because there's a kind of Christian ethic to it.
The US is the world's largest humanitarian donor, and Interaction, an alliance of NGOs, said over the weekend that President Trump's move will interrupt life-saving work that supports American leadership. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Here's a recap of our top stories. The United States and Colombia have avoided a trade war after the South American nation agreed to allow its citizens deported from the US to arrive in military planes. Leaders have gathered at the United Nations to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. And the United Nations Security Council on Monday pledged its full support for UN peacekeeping in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's the latest feature story news. I'm Mitch McCann in New York.
The American Psychiatric Association has issued an alarming study warning that the nation's used car salesmen are going completely insane, and in some extreme cases, practically giving cars away. The APA traces the outbreak of widespread hysteria to an apparent overstock of high-quality late-model cars begging to be driven off the lot today. Some severe symptoms include delusions, manic exuberance, and a psychotic commitment to offer the lowest prices guaranteed. Victims' families are joining together to raise awareness of this serious psychological epidemic.
The authorities found out how unbelievably low his prices were. They'd lock him up and throw away the key.
You are not alone. Over half of America's used car salesmen are currently going bonkers.
Car dealers suffering from this condition are prone to project their own disorders onto others. According to Mad Max, the Car Czar's website, you're out of your mind if you're not taking advantage of these low prices.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live is radio that you control by calling in. Anybody's allowed to call and say pretty much whatever they want within the FCC guidelines. The phone number here to the studio is 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. In the studio tonight, it's me, Stu.
Riley.
And Richie Rich.
And previously, we were talking about the pardoning of...
Previously on FTL.
That's right.
The pardoning of Anthony Fauci.
Thank you so much for the radio voice, for the
so-called
narrator announcer voice.
The so-called doctor, anyway.
The alleged doctor, Anthony Fauci.
So much hype built up now.
Yeah.
So to go on with this.
Where did he get his medical degree anyway?
Probably a university in Africa.
Probably a question that's worth looking into, and who he met in college, and
is that university still in existence, and are they willing to revoke it?
Yeah. Right now, though, we're going to go to the phones where we've got a caller on the line. On-screen caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
It's a boy.
Oh, man. I was so glad I had last week off. Did not have to hear that.
The Dread Pirate Skeeter, the Commissioner of Murder of Free Talk Live.
Oh, yes. Please, FBI, did you hear the admission? Did you hear it? Start investigating Skeeter because he is now known to you.
Of Free Talk Live. I keep dispelling all your lies about Ross Ulbricht, Roger Ver, the government.
That would probably just look like Skeeter investigating himself.
Economics.
The sad thing about the Roger Ver one is, like, someone posted and asked when the Roger Ver pardon was coming, and Elon responded out of all people and said no. He revoked or he renounced his United States citizenship, so he doesn't get a pardon.
Tragic.
Yeah, and it basically said like membership has its privileges. So Roger Ver is probably not going to be on the list.
That's interesting.
That's how he acquired his fortune, by being a member of the biggest, baddest gang of the world.
You're talking about Elon Musk or Roger Ver?
Oh, Roger Ver.
He amassed his fortune by being a part of the government?
No, by being a citizen. Yeah, by being a citizen of the United States. The people are the government, idiot.
No,
we're a collective.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You can't be calling people idiots on
the government is made up of people.
We can call you an idiot, though.
You have a vote, and you fund the government, right?
I don't fund the government.
I don't vote, and I haven't funded it voluntarily ever.
Yeah, under duress is not me being government.
Do you transact with the citizens of the United States?
I didn't know if they're citizens.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I'm going to say technically no, because we've already established there's no such thing as a United States citizen.
What are you talking about? Don't start that sovereign citizen crap with me.
It's not a sovereign citizen. It's by their rules and by their definition. So if there's no United States citizens, then I have not transacted with any of them.
Don't start that stuff. That's sovereign citizen myth.
No, if you're asking a question and I'm answering a question, no, I have not transacted with any United States citizen because there are none.
Definitions matter, Skeeter.
Yes. Yeah, no.
You can't ignore the facts of the matter and then accuse me of lying.
Definition from?
What's that? Black's Law Dictionary.
From another sovereign citizen?
Black's Law Dictionary.
Who told you this interpretation of
It's not an interpretation. It's the definition as laid out in Black's Law Dictionary.
Let me guess. Christopher Gronsky.
No. Again, you've asked a question, Skeeter. And I've answered your question directly, and you're still throwing out straw men of other things I may or may not have gotten my information from.
Yeah, that's not how you have a productive conversation.
You don't look up the definition of a U.S. citizen in the Black's Law Dictionary, right?
You look up the definition of citizenship.
That's what they use.
That's what they use.
It's anyone. The 14th Amendment says it's anyone born in the United States. They're granted citizenship.
And
where else?
Go ahead.
Where else? So what's the definition in the Black's Law Dictionary of a U.S. citizen?
Not of a U.S. citizen, of citizenship. Citizenship is, again, an agreement. It's an arrangement where you offer your duty of allegiance in exchange for their protection.
Protection, essentially.
An obligation of allegiance in exchange for a duty of protection. That's like the summary definition of citizenship in Black's Law Dictionary.
Well, Skeeter thinks that they actually do protect you, which is, I can give you countless examples of how they don't. But, so we've been over this one. Do you have anything else? Because you never call what you really wanted to call about, so let's get to that thing.
First off, the Supreme Court rules what the contractual duty of the government is. And they ruled they have a duty to protect the general public, which they do. You see...
No, they've ruled that they do not have a duty to protect. That's why the agreement is null and void.
And if they do, then their actions can show that they're wildly askew from that target.
The Supreme Court, they ruled that they do not have a duty to protect any particular individual, but they have a duty to protect the general public. That is the contractual duty of the government to a citizen. You understand that?
But if they don't have an obligation to protect the individual, then no individual is part of that arrangement.
Yeah, and there is no collective. That's only made up of individuals. So if they're not accountable to the individual, they're not accountable to anybody.
If the individual isn't covered by the collective contract, then it's null and void.
They are accountable in elections. If they're guilty of dereliction of duty, they can go to jail. They can be fired. You just can't sue them. So stop with this sovereign citizen nonsense.
It's not sovereign citizen nonsense. Again, it's by their rules and by their definition.
But we all know they don't like their rules and their definitions.
The 14th Amendment
and you can sue them by hiring somebody who works for their team, and you're not going to win.
Isn't the Constitution? It does not. It does.
That's what they use for their definitions on their rules, though.
Anyway, this is not what I want to talk about, right?
Obviously. So let's get to that thing.
You should just start with what you want to talk about from now on.
I wanted to get away from your lies about Ross Ulbricht, Roger Ver.
There's no lies. Everything we said is truthful, validated information.
And since he's been granted a pardon, I guess he can't incriminate himself, so he can go ahead and tell us how all of that went down when he feels like talking about it.
Only the guilty need a pardon. And
so Anthony Fauci is guilty?
You're lucky that Trump is just desperate for special interest votes. But anyway...
Yeah, well, and to be clear, you're throwing out that rhetoric of only the guilty need a pardon, and that's not even how they're presenting it, right? Like, you're already off base. The narrative is only the guilty need a preemptive pardon, right? Mm-hmm. If you've been tried and found guilty, yes, you are guilty, and then you can be pardoned. But the narrative going forward right now from the left, when they thought Trump was going to do it, and now from the right, that now that Biden has done it, right, is having a preemptive pardon before you've been investigated, before you've been arraigned and indicted and tried and found guilty, right? Before all of that, if you receive a preemptive pardon, there's an indicator or presumption of guilt a priori to any of those other actions. So you're not even getting the rhetoric right by saying only the guilty need a pardon, because that's already true. You pardon guilty people because they've already been found guilty, usually unfairly or unjustly, or that the sentence was unjust, and therefore you pardon them to retract all of that or commute the sentence if they've gotten time served.
Ross Ulbricht's sentence wasn't unjust. He scored the highest offense score of 43, right? Objectively, which recommended at least a life sentence.
But he got double life plus 40 years.
Yes. That's what you get when you're a pioneer of internet drug kingpinning and murder for hire.
He was a kid who wanted to sell some mushrooms on the internet, man.
You don't plead guilty, right? What do you expect when you don't plead guilty? What do you expect? He could have had 10 years to life. Right?
Yes, but he wasn't guilty.
Closer to 10.
And he was never tried for murder for hire. You're just, again, you're the one falsifying the information and projecting this as something that he was tried and found guilty of when it is not true.
I thought you wanted to get away from that. Anyways.
Let me answer. You cannot be tried for murder for hire when they're imaginary people. He was charged with murder for hire on the one real person he tried to kill, right? Unfortunately, that trial didn't come to pass because
he was not guilty of it and doesn't need to be pardoned from it.
He was guilty.
There was no trial. You just said there was no trial. He could not have been guilty.
He could not have because nobody died. He could possibly have been guilty of conspire to do so, but...
Did you hear what I said? He wasn't tried for murder for hire.
We know. That's the point. So why are you saying that he was pardoned for murder for hire? Or that he was a part of murder for hire?
You can't be tried for murder for hire when they're imaginary victims, idiot.
If they're imaginary victims, then he still did nothing wrong, idiot.
Yes, he did. It was his intention.
What's the crime? If you can't be charged with murder for hire if there's no victim and no hitman.
The crime was his intention to kill a real person. He thought he was trying to kill a real person. That's
a real crime. They get people for that all the time, right? That's like part of the TV shows of cops or whatever, where they're like, or the rentahitman.com website, where they actually get people exchanging the money. They did a whole movie about that recently. I forget what the movie was. Might have been Hitman or something.
It has to be for number one. It has to be a real person. Number two, they didn't even catch Red and White at that. They didn't even know who Red and White was at the time. The person who he hired to kill people, five people. Right?
But if there's no real person, if in one breath you're saying there's no real person, and in another breath you're saying he had intended to kill a real person, then you're already internally contradicted. You can't have it both ways.
There's no contradiction.
And not only that, if you want to be accurate, you have to say DPR because he wasn't the only person who had login credentials for that account.
That's another libertarian lie. That's another libertarian lie. First off, his defense
it's
was
not
absurd.
actually. I'm pretty sure that was documented and admitted to in court.
It's not documented. All admins had their own login. He was the only one that could log into the mastermind page, and he had the keys to the PGP keys to Dread Pirate Robert's signing of his posts.
Have you even seen the movie? Do you even understand the concept of Dread Pirate Roberts?
I looked at all the evidence and all the YouTube videos and all the testimony.
Well, watch the movie, man. The whole point of Dread Pirate Roberts is it's a name that gets passed down from person to person,
and he
assumes the mantle.
He tried to do that at one point.
Do you understand how idiotic that is? Too. First off,
it's a movie. It's a fantasy movie, but explains the concept of Dread Pirate Roberts.
I understand the concept of Dread Pirate.
Then you should know that if you have a login called Dread Pirate Roberts, that you can then pass that login to anybody you wish, and they assume the mantle. Ross Ulbricht may not have even been first and may not have even been last. Just got caught in the middle.
the intention of why they created the name.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that all of the stuff that happened under Dread Pirate Roberts wasn't even Ross Ulbricht, because it was a name used in that manner to establish that anyone could be him.
Do you understand the standard of reasonability? You have to show evidence that someone actually was kingpinning, just like Ross Ulbricht. He didn't provide any evidence.
Do you understand the concept of reasonable doubt? And that if there are multiple people with the login, you can't pin it on one guy because it could have been multiple people?
Only one person had the login to the mastermind page. There was no evidence anyone else logged into the Silk Road mastermind page.
I've never heard anybody else reference the Silk Road mastermind page.
Yeah, that's what he was caught when he was on his laptop.
Even if so,
into the mastermind page.
Right? If it's the login that you're concerned about, and like I could give Riley the login to my email account, and he can log in and read my email.
And send email as Richie Rich.
And send or Dread Pirate Roberts. That's the idea of sharing the login.
No, that doesn't rise to the standard of reasonability, right?
It absolutely does.
Yeah,
and even if it doesn't, it rises to the of reasonable doubt.
And not only that, but Catherine Forrester, the judge in the case, specifically
said you're an idiot.
That she was giving him such a harsh sentence because of his political ideology, and because she didn't like the way he thought, and that he wasn't going to change his mind.
His ideology is dangerous when you're trying to get people to break the.
Yes, the ideology of freedom and liberty is dangerous to those authoritarians in power when you're threatening their power structure.
Threaten all the power structures.
He's interrupting me again.
I don't care. Nobody here cares. They like me way better than they like you.
No, you're more likely to get muted.
This isn't Free Talk Live. You just talk over people and you don't give them a chance to get their point out.
We've given you multiple opportunities, dude.
Yeah, you don't make any good points.
You never have since day one.
Hey! Cry in the Mountain Dew bottle, incel.
Liberty itself. Do your job first, Chair. Liberty.
Do your job first, Chair.
Look,
you want to use your time on the air to tell me how to do my job, Skeeter?
That was your opportunity to just dump him.
Or do you just want to say the thing?
Liberty
Liberty.
By itself is not a dangerous thing. But when you try to get other people to break the collective rules, when you can leave on your own volition.
Yes, when you try to set the slaves free and give them the ideas of freedom and liberty so that they can set themselves free.
We are, dude.
How are you slaves?
We can't leave unless we pay the dues of the institution.
The same way Roger Ver is a slave because they're dragging him back.
I'll pay. No, they dragged him back because he falsified his 2017 tax returns. Again, libertarian lies. Why do you think he filed a 2017 tax return?
So he could leave the country without having the burden of having to come back.
I don't think you can fill out a tax return
he left in 2014,
correctly.
idiot.
That's also probably true.
They're all filled out fraudulently.
He left in, you get your facts wrong. He left in 2014. Why does he need to file a 2017
what are you screaming
tax
about?
return?
Oh, I don't know then. They shouldn't have filled it out. If he was already gone and already no longer citizen and already renounced.
Because this idiot doesn't know facts. Because foreigners have to pay dividend taxes on their U.S. companies. He owned the U.S. company, so he still had tax obligations to the U.S. Stupid.
Well, taxation is extortion. Thanks for reminding us that taxation is extortion.
That's the main crux of the argument of his tax evasion.
Well, it kind of seems like they should have told him about that at the time and not 10 years later.
Stop interrupting. Rich, do you acknowledge that? Do you acknowledge foreigners have to pay dividend taxes on their U.S. company ownership?
If you're saying that that's the rule, I acknowledge that's what you believe, but as we've just noted, taxation is extortion, and you have under libertarian philosophy, you have no obligation to be truthful with people trying to rob you.
Taxation is just fees.
You have no obligation to be truthful with those trying to rob you.
Just like HOA fees, you're allowed to leave. There's no excuse for you.
Will you acknowledge what I just said?
I didn't care what you said because you talked over me.
Oh, okay.
Listen to the first part. Why don't you wait and wait your turn and wait?
Because you asked me a question and I answered it, and then you interrupted while I was answering your question directly.
Yep. If you're gonna ask your question, you better wait for the answer.
Idiot.
No, wait for me to finish my point. No, what'd you hear? What'd you say?
I said you have, under libertarian philosophy, you have no obligation to be truthful with the people trying to rob you.
Now, what's your case that they're robbing you? You're on their land, right? Just like the
No, he was not on their land. He was already in another country. Gone.
What land are the slaves on in Jones Plantation? Tell me.
Master Jones.
Yeah, and guess who Master Jones represents, really? The collective citizens of the United States before that.
No, he doesn't represent the collective citizenry of the United States.
Yeah,
he is the single tyrant in power at the time.
No, yeah, that's the citizens with their collective vote, idiot.
No, the citizens in that case are the plantation slaves.
Yeah.
So if the citizens were to agree with libertarian principles, you could abolish taxation right now. You just have to convince the general public. There's nothing about slavery that's involved in it.
They take my money involuntarily.
No, just like
I don't give it to them. I don't give it to them willingly.
Yep, I don't consent to them taking it, and I don't consent to what they use it on.
Of course, you don't care about consent, Skeeter.
I don't want to pay my mom rent. Is that involuntary? No, I can leave.
Yes, right? You can leave because, again, we've already established this. It's a poor example because you're conflating private property with what is commonly referred to as public property. And in the United States, the prevailing ideology was that there were no kings who owned all the property and that we could all be landlords of our own property. Like that's what the United States represents. And so when everything is privately owned, then the crown has no claim. And if the crown establishes a claim, they are then tyrants. That's the difference. That's what separates us from the European model.
Idiot. This is not a monarchy, idiot.
I know, which is why each landowner is sovereign to their own land. Like your mom is sovereign to her own apartment, of which you dwell in the basement. Right? She can kick you out, but the United States cannot kick me out because they don't own the land.
That's right. And the deal is supposed to be that you can go get your own chunk of land. And not let your mom there if you don't want to, if you're bad at her.
No, you can't. That was never the rule. That was never the rule of the United States. You can't just get your own land. You're not subject to the jurisdiction of the government, right? The government is representatives of the general public, right?
No, the rule was that you could get your own land.
Yep.
That's why there is still the concept of a allodial title in some areas where it's free and clear of all government intervention.
What does it say in the Constitution that when you get your own land, you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the Constitution?
The Constitution is a document to talk about what the government can and cannot do, and not what the people can do. And if you want to find it anywhere, it's likely going to be in the 9th Amendment, which says anything we haven't already covered is reserved for the people or the states that they reside in. Like the 9th and 10th Amendment. If it's not authorized by the federal government in the Constitution, it's reserved to the states and the people.
If that were the case, then the states could determine if slavery is legal or not.
That's why they fought a civil war, you moron.
Yeah, no. If you were to take your argument, then you could make a case that. So you agree with that?
That the states can? No, I'm saying that's what they fought for. I'm not a fan of slavery, but that's the claim. We have states' rights. We want slavery. You're not in charge of us.
Nice try again. I'm making some sense. Maybe you can do better next time. Give us a call at Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Mitch McCann. A looming trade war between the United States and Colombia has been avoided after Colombia agreed to allow its citizens removed from the US to arrive in American military planes. It follows a dramatic back and forth between Colombia's president and Donald Trump, who threatened to impose significant trade sanctions and visa restrictions. The White House released a statement late Sunday saying that Colombia had agreed to all of the president's terms after Donald Trump threatened significant sanctions on Colombia, including 50% tariffs and visa sanctions on government officials. The disagreement started after Mr. Trump claimed that Colombia's president was not allowing plane loads of Colombian citizens deported from the US to land back in their home country. Earlier, President Gustavo Petro had said that a migrant is not a criminal and must be treated with the dignity that a human being deserves. That is why I returned the US military planes that were carrying Colombian migrants. The US is Colombia's largest trading partner, and hours later, its foreign minister announced, "We have overcome the impasse with the United States government." Leaders have gathered at the United Nations to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. The discovery of the Nazi camp towards the end of World War II remains one of the most powerful symbols of the horrors of the Holocaust. Sally Patterson reports from New York.
The ceremony remembered the 6 million people murdered because they were Jewish, as well as Roma and Sinti victims, people with disabilities, and LGBTQI groups. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the General Assembly that remembrance is not only a moral act, but a call to action. A key theme in this year's commemoration was the rise in anti-Semitism around the world. That's at least in part linked to the Israel-Hamas war.
And the United Nations Security Council on Monday pledged its full support for UN peacekeeping in the Democratic Republic of Congo as fighting in the DRC intensified in recent days. In a statement, the Council says attacks against peacekeepers may constitute war crimes. 6 UN peacekeepers have been killed since the fighting with M23 rebels escalated. Jody Jacobs has more from the UN in New York.
The UN Security Council has condemned in the strongest terms ongoing advances by the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On Sunday, the Council held an urgent meeting following the deaths of 6 UN peacekeepers. In a statement released on Monday morning, the Council called on Rwanda and the DRC to return to diplomatic talks to achieve a lasting and peaceful resolution. The Council has also demanded that the ongoing offensive and advances towards Goma stop immediately. As the fighting intensifies, the UN has now also been forced to temporarily relocate non-essential staff from the area.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Talk radio that you control. Call in, get on the air with us. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. And I'd like to thank Lynette for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Lynette went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks again to Lynette and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley,
and Richie Rich.
And we're going to go right to the phones where we've got Kadu calling from Connecticut. What's on your mind, Kadu?
Hey, have you guys checked out
the Department of Girlfriend Efficiency app?
No.
No, what is this?
Is that a real thing for the incels?
It's fantastic. There's all kinds of girlfriends to choose from.
Okay.
And although,
which one did you pick?
Well, I'm still scrolling through, checking out the options, but I'm upset.
You're not a power swiper?
They don't. Not really. They don't have one yet who is okay with Dorito crumbs on the bed, but I'm hoping that it'll show up soon.
Is that like a checkbox in the fetish section?
Yeah.
Must be okay with Dorito crumbs.
Another great.
Give her the old orange fingers.
Another great feature though is the fact that, like, if you say, listen, make me a sandwich, and she says, I'm not going to make you a sandwich, or if she has a bad attitude, says, why are you playing video games all day? How come you never do anything useful or productive, and you don't have a job? She says something like that. You can within minutes, the police will show up at your house. You just hit the button on the app, and they set her straight. It's fantastic.
Okay.
They put her in the kitchen to make the sandwiches.
Yeah, but so
here's the real question though: if you're in there playing video games, right? Why is she even allowed in that area anyway? Shouldn't she already just be in the kitchen? Well, why are you letting her out of the kitchen to begin with?
That's a good question.
That's another thing, but the good thing about the government is that when you I'm sure if you contacted them with this problem about the app, they're very quick to make these updates, and so that should be solved very soon if you call on. Anyway, everybody check it out. Go to the Apple App Store, Department of Girlfriend Efficiency.
Department of Girlfriend. Okay, so is only iPhone, not Android? Is he gone?
Oh, yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right.
I wonder if it's a real app. I don't think it is, though.
Well, I will check later because I do have an iPhone.
Well, I do too, but...
Oh, okay.
Department of Girlfriend Efficiency, huh?
Probably won't use it, but it'd be funny if it were.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be funny.
Remember the original iPhone? They had like the red dot app? No. Oh man, this was a big deal early on. Like when the App Store first became a thing, there was all the apps were like $1, and this dude made his app like $1,000, and it was like I am rich type of an app, and all it did was put like a red icon on your phone. Huh. And it's like, so if you had the red icon, it's like everyone knew that you could afford this like $1,000 app that only put that thing on there. Wow. But people thought it was a joke, and when they got the charge for $1,000, like, what is this? This is not what I paid for. I'm like, yeah, it was. It said, I'm rich, and it's $1,000. It was a thing.
That's hilarious.
It was.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That's obscene. Obscenely funny.
I don't think you could get away with it now. There's more oversight on the App Store. But.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. They wouldn't want you just to make an app worth $1,000 that's going to be putting a red dot on the screen.
Yeah, you got to call it an NFT now, right?
Oh man, don't get me started.
Or a meme coin.
NFTs have a legitimate function, and it was just
they do.
But it was abused.
Yeah,
when it first came out.
Abused. It was abused because people wanted to make it seem like a picture was special or an album was special, rather than this is a non-fungible token to prove that you own property. Yes. Or own a house or own something.
Leave it to humans to take something revolutionary and turn it into cats.
Yes.
So,
or in this case, gorillas, right? Wasn't that the monkey NFTs?
I don't
know.
It
was.
The big one that first broke Ethereum was the CryptoKitties.
Okay,
I remember that.
All right.
That was kind of an NFT game sort of thing.
I feel like that was pre-NFTs, but all right. I remember the CryptoKitties.
Yeah. Anyways.
But I heard dudes like Gary Vaynerchuk going like, oh no, what you got to do, man, is like you got to take the receipt that you give people at your restaurant and just turn that into an NFT. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Again, they turned it into a scam. What was like legitimate property ownership, right? Like, I own this thing. I'm creating an NFT that says this belongs to me, like your house or your car or your boat or whatever, and it could have been a way to establish ownership outside of government registration.
Yep.
Right? I don't need my state tokens, my registration with the state or my title or deed with the state because I've got this digital thing now, this NFT.
Right. No,
and then they ruined it.
To the DMV to have a title reassigned.
Right.
It just gets
transfer
reassigned when you send it to somebody else's wallet.
Exactly.
Yep. I've got a story here from NPR. Trump's executive orders on immigration lay the blueprint for the next 4 years. The Trump administration series of sweeping actions this week is a crackdown on illegal immigration, one of President's campaign promises. President Trump is sending 1,500 active duty troops to the border and ending Biden-era border and asylum policies. Not all of his executive orders will have immediate effects, but immigration experts say that taken together, they lay out a blueprint for how Trump aims to dramatically transform enforcement at the border and beyond.
This is another weird one where libertarians are divided for some odd reason.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's double contradictive.
Well, you have libertarians who...
Because open borders is the stance, but...
It should be. That should be like the libertarian position.
Oh, it is. It's my position. Free people should cross the borders of countries freely, or you do not have free people or free countries.
Yep. But
that being said,
it does get complicated though when you have George Soros funding groups of
it gets
people who would never otherwise immigrate.
It gets really complicated too when you add a welfare system, and then you have a bunch of welfare slaves that want to come in and get welfare, rather than ending the welfare system. The Republicans say, "We're going to end this illegal immigration."
Yeah. Yep. Unnatural incentives, you could say, even because it goes way beyond welfare.
Yeah,
they're being given free bus rides here, put up in hotels.
Yeah,
and that's not across the board. Some people will try to do it the correct way and wait 7 years, and some people will wait 3 days. And there's no rhyme or reason. None of it really makes any sense.
It doesn't.
And quotas for certain countries.
Yep.
We got too many of you people. We got to let in more of those guys over there.
So instead of making the immigration process easier, Trump is opting to deport people.
Someone brought up an interesting thing, if Biden really cared about all the immigrants that were already here illegally, why not issue that blanket pardon at the 11th hour before, you got his whole family out of there. He got Fauci off the hook, right? Pardon to all immigrants who were here, between the years, yada, 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 and this date, you are now legal.
Congratulations. You're now citizens.
Get a job.
Yep. On another note, he's you heard that he's doing away with the anchor babies policy.
Yeah.
That's pretty controversial, isn't that one of the original things listed in the Constitution?
It's not the original. I don't think it's necessarily original. I think it's the 14th Amendment that established it.
Yes.
And it came after the 1860s.
Okay.
So here's the controversial part of it. And if you want to pull up the text, I could do it quickly, but it comes, the verbiage that they're adjudicating is of the jurisdiction of, or within the jurisdiction of, or whatever. There's a comma in the 14th Amendment, and it talks about jurisdiction, and then there's another comma, and the entire argument is between those two commas. And again, I was having this discussion yesterday with a buddy of mine, and one of the things that he brought up was John McCain and Barack Obama and their United States citizen status. And the claim was that even if Barack Obama was born in Kenya, because he was born to two American parents, he's de facto an American citizen. And even though John McCain was born on a naval base outside of the country or whatever base he happened to be born on, because he was born of American parents, that makes him an American. I go, okay, if that's the established line, right, then you have to use that when it comes to Mexicans.
Yeah.
Right. If the Mexican mom and the Mexican dad is of Mexican descent, it does not matter where they delivered that baby. That's a Mexican baby.
Yeah.
And I think that's Trump's claim to waive the birthright citizenship, is that the parents are of the jurisdiction of Mexico as Mexican citizens, right? And therefore their progeny is of the jurisdiction of Mexico and is therefore a Mexican citizen or whatever country, right? And therefore not of the jurisdiction of the United States and not granted de facto birthright citizenship.
Well, some people disagree with that, even though sounds logical to me. The ACLU has gone ahead and filed suit against Donald Trump specifically.
Okay.
Charges the Trump administration with flouting the Constitution's dictates, congressional intent, and long-standing Supreme Court precedent.
All right, I pulled it up real quick, so let me just give you the actual verbiage, and then you can carry on.
Yeah.
Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, comma, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, comma, are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. So the whole argument is and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Like that's where the argument is being hung.
Okay.
And again, already established, with Skid Row on the call, right? There's no real United States citizenship, so it's all null and void.
Right.
But they're going to say you are or you aren't, and that's where they're hanging it.
Yeah. I wonder what Mexico's policy is towards Mexican babies born on American soil.
I don't know. That's for them, right? If there's a very small subset of actual stateless people who no territorial jurisdiction claims sovereignty over, right? Like I don't. There's a list somewhere. I don't have it in front of me. I can look it up again. But like a stateless individual is a thing where they're not a citizen of any country on the planet.
Yeah, I heard that's a tricky place to be.
It is a very tricky place to be, right? What do?
Basically, you're subject to being thrown in a prison without any protections.
Right, and so per Elon Musk and Roger Ver, right? There's a price to pay for or what? How would I say? There's a I can't remember the exact quote, but
I can't either. But
there's a benefit to
membership. Essentially.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Membership has its perks, or whatever he said. So if you have to be, it's to get away with that sort of thing, right? We're all fans of statelessness and anti-government, and you don't own me. Right, but if someone doesn't claim you, life is difficult.
Indeed.
Well, according to Anthony D. Romero, executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union, denying citizenship to U.S.-born children is not only unconstitutional, it's also a reckless and ruthless repudiation of American values. Birthright citizenship is part of what makes the United States the strong and dynamic nation that it is. This order seeks to repeat one of the gravest errors in American history by creating a permanent subclass of people born in the U.S. who are denied full rights as Americans. We will not let this attack on newborns and future generations of Americans go unchallenged. The Trump administration's overreach is so egregious that we are confident we will ultimately prevail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. To me,
it seems unconstitutional on the surface, but again, if it's never been challenged before and this is the challenge, right, the courts are going to weigh on one way or the other.
Well, the way the 14th Amendment's worded, to me, doesn't sound like they're necessarily under the jurisdiction, unless they're just claiming ownership over that person because they were born here. But yeah, born here, it's mine, claimed.
Well, that's the 14th Amendment as it stands now, right? You're born here. You're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and they claim you.
Okay.
Right, and if you want to get dual citizenship elsewhere or someplace that offers it, you can be claimed by multiple.
If only somebody had the foresight to have given detailed, a detailed description of what they actually meant, instead of writing one sentence with some precariously placed comments.
I think
commas.
It's my understanding that when the founding documents were written, the average intelligence was a little bit higher and they assumed that people would maintain a level of common sense where they didn't have to, specify everything.
Oh, they didn't know.
They didn't know how dumb we would be.
They didn't know John Dewey was coming down the pike.
Right. I mean, like the Second Amendment, right? That's a big one, right? Yeah. Shall not be infringed is pretty darn clear.
Oh, pretty darn clear.
And you should not need to elaborate further.
Shouldn't.
And yet here we are.
All kinds of infringement.
Yep, indeed.
I've got a headline here. I don't know. It ties in, so I don't know if you want to finish, and then, I'll read this one. But this is from the Mises Institute, and it says birthright citizenship isn't real. So it also, goes into a little bit of detail of what's going on there. And
I think everybody kind of understands the argument for it is real. So let's get into this one.
Okay. I'll just start at the top so I don't have to fumble my way through where it's valid here. Donald Trump yesterday issued a new executive order declaring the so-called birthright citizenship does not apply to the children of foreign nationals residing illegally within the United States. The order reads in part, it is the policy of the United States that no department or agency of the United States government shall issue documents recognizing United States citizenship or accepting documents issued by state, local, or other governments or authorities purporting to recognize United States citizenship to persons, one, when that person's mother was unlawfully present in the United States and the person's father was not a United States citizen or lawfully permanent resident at the time of said person's birth, or two, when that person's mother's presence in the United States was lawful but temporary and the person's father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. There is a common misconception. This is back into the article, not the quoted part of the thing. There is a common misconception in the United States that the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution mandates that the U.S. government grant citizenship to anyone and everyone born within the borders of the United States. The misconception is largely due to the fact that for several decades, U.S. courts and technocrats have conspired to redefine the original meaning of the amendment and thus apply it to every child of every tourist and foreign national who happens to be born on this side of the U.S. border. Some have even attempted to define access to birthright citizenship as some sort of natural right. This is a common tactic among some libertarians who have twisted the idea of property rights to extend the idea of a right to the governmental administrative act known as naturalization. And that's another thing I'll interject real quick. Immigration doesn't appear in the Constitution. Naturalization does. So when they talk about immigrants, it's not even a purview of the federal government. Naturalization is. Back to the article. Even when looking at the issue strictly in terms of procedural legal rights, however, it is clear that the current definition of birthright citizenship is in conflict with the law as originally intended and interpreted. To understand the central point of contention, let's note that the text of the 14th Amendment itself, which states that citizenship shall be extended to all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Note that there are two qualifying phrases here. The person in question must be both born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It's the second qualification that remains a matter of debate, and this is kind of what I was getting into earlier. It's that little clause right in the middle there. What does it mean to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States? This issue is explained by legal scholar Hans Spakovsky, who notes that advocates of granting birthright citizenship to anyone born in the United States, quote, erroneously believe that anyone present in the United States has subjected himself to the jurisdiction of the United States, which would extend citizenship to the children of tourists, diplomats, and illegal aliens alike. But that is not what the qualifying phrase means. Its original meaning refers to the political allegiance of an individual and the jurisdiction that a foreign government has over that individual. The fact that a tourist or illegal alien is subject to our laws and courts if they violate our laws does not place them within the political jurisdiction of the United States as the phrase was defined by the framers of the 14th Amendment. This amendment's language was derived from the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which provided that all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power would be considered citizens. Senator Lyman Trumbull, a key figure in the adoption of the 14th Amendment, said that, quote, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States included not owing allegiance to any other country. And that's the paraphrasing there, back to the Outside article. The court themselves have historically recognized this distinction, noting that the whole purpose of the 14th Amendment was to grant citizenship to former slaves who obviously were not connected to any other country or sovereignty. In the slaughterhouse cases, the court ruled, quote, that the 14th Amendment's main purpose was to establish the citizenship of the Negro can admit of no doubt. The phrase subject to its jurisdiction was intended to exclude from its operation children of ministers, consuls, and citizens of subjects of foreign states born within the United States, unquote. This was further confirmed by the court in 1884 in Elk v. Wilkins, when the court stated that the idea of birthright citizenship did not apply to Native American tribes, which were nonetheless within the borders of the United States. Quote, the 14th Amendment contemplates two sources of citizenship and two sources only, birth and naturalization. The person declared to be a citizen are all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The evident meaning of these last words is not merely subject in some respect or degree to the jurisdiction of the United States, but completely subject to their political jurisdiction and owing them direct and immediate allegiance. Again, back to our definition of citizenship earlier. And the words relate to this time of birth in one case as they do to the time of naturalization in the other. Persons not thus subject to the jurisdiction of the United States at the time of birth cannot become so afterwards except by being naturalized, either individually as by proceeding under the Naturalization Act or collectively as by the force of a treaty by which foreign territory is acquired. Indians born within the territorial limits of the United States, members of and owing immediate allegiance to one of the Indian tribes, an alien though dependent power, although in a geographical sense born in the United States, are no more born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof within the meaning of the first section of the 14th Amendment, than the children of subjects of any foreign government born within the domain of that government, or the children born within the United States of ambassadors or of public ministers of foreign nations. In short, the court recognized that the tribal lands were within the legal jurisdiction of the United States, but this did not mean that everyone born within these borders were automatically granted citizenship. Those tribal members believed to be subjects of foreign tribal governments were therefore not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and in a way that conferred automatic citizenship. And again, it goes on.
Okay.
What do you think about birthright citizenship? Give us a call, 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Mitch McCann. A looming trade war between the United States and Colombia has been avoided after Colombia agreed to allow its citizens removed from the US to arrive in American military planes. It follows a dramatic back and forth between Colombia's president and Donald Trump, who threatened to impose significant trade sanctions and visa restrictions. The White House released a statement late Sunday saying that Colombia had agreed to all of the president's terms after Donald Trump threatened significant sanctions on Colombia, including 50% tariffs and visa sanctions on government officials. The disagreement started after Mr. Trump claimed that Colombia's president was not allowing plane loads of Colombian citizens deported from the US to land back in their home country. Earlier, President Gustavo Petro had said that a migrant is not a criminal and must be treated with the dignity that a human being deserves. That is why I returned the US military planes that were carrying Colombian migrants. The US is Colombia's largest trading partner, and hours later, its foreign minister announced, "We have overcome the impasse with the United States government." Leaders have gathered at the United Nations to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. The discovery of the Nazi camp towards the end of World War II remains one of the most powerful symbols of the horrors of the Holocaust. Sally Patterson reports from New York.
The ceremony remembered the 6 million people murdered because they were Jewish, as well as Roma and Sinti victims, people with disabilities, and LGBTQI groups. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the General Assembly that remembrance is not only a moral act, but a call to action. A key theme in this year's commemoration was the rise in anti-Semitism around the world. That's at least in part linked to the Israel-Hamas war.
And the United Nations Security Council on Monday pledged its full support for UN peacekeeping in the Democratic Republic of Congo as fighting in the DRC intensified in recent days. In a statement, the Council says attacks against peacekeepers may constitute war crimes. 6 UN peacekeepers have been killed since the fighting with M23 rebels escalated. Jody Jacobs has more from the UN in New York.
The UN Security Council has condemned in the strongest terms ongoing advances by the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On Sunday, the Council held an urgent meeting following the deaths of 6 UN peacekeepers. In a statement released on Monday morning, the Council called on Rwanda and the DRC to return to diplomatic talks to achieve a lasting and peaceful resolution. The Council has also demanded that the ongoing offensive and advances towards Goma stop immediately. As the fighting intensifies, the UN has now also been forced to temporarily relocate non-essential staff from the area.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on President Donald Trump's decision to freeze immediately all US foreign assistance worldwide. The State Department, now led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, acted on that decision over the weekend. Humanitarian aid groups are stunned and still trying to work out what it all means. Michael Keating is a professor of international political economy at Richmond American University, London.
A lot of it is Christian aid, and a lot of it is dispersed through Christian charity. You have to remember most US aid, and it's a massive amount of money, is dispersed not by the US government. So I do wonder about how much of the money is contracted for disbursement by private agencies and whether they can simply freeze it. Because if it was just the government who was dispersing it, that would make sense, right? But if you've got massive, ongoing, decades-long contracts with huge multinational corporations to deliver this aid, can you just freeze it overnight? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, a lot of it is dispersed by Christian charities. And I think his base it does like that, because there's a kind of Christian ethic to it.
The US is the world's largest humanitarian donor, and Interaction, an alliance of NGOs, said over the weekend that President Trump's move will interrupt life-saving work that supports American leadership. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Here's a recap of our top stories. The United States and Colombia have avoided a trade war after the South American nation agreed to allow its citizens deported from the US to arrive in military planes. Leaders have gathered at the United Nations to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. And the United Nations Security Council on Monday pledged its full support for UN peacekeeping in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's the latest Feature Story News. I'm Mitch McCann in New York.
Nothing you do or say will ever reach the lofty heights attained by the following news summary. This is the Onion Week in Review. Facing increased market pressure and a shrinking bottom line, media company Star Trove was forced to lay off dozens of unskilled bloggers this week. Sources confirmed that before being dismissed, many of the bloggers had been with the company for months, regularly performing menial tasks such as describing celebrity outfits and composing quizzes about Disney characters.
I mean, I'd been with this company for almost a year. It wasn't the most rewarding job, and I didn't have health insurance, but it paid the bills. I'm already 25 years old. I just don't know where to go from here.
In other news, a 6-day visit to a rural African village completely changes a woman's Facebook profile picture. A new dating website helps plus-size Jewish plane crash survivors find love. And a kid figures he'll go down the slide 36 more times and then call it a day.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. This is talk radio that you control. The phone number in the studio is 603-283-6160. Call and get your thoughts on the air. Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it will cost a little over $5 per month. But Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you are feeling so inspired. You will get a special membership badge that is visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today. In the studio tonight is Stu,
Riley,
and Richie Rich.
And we were talking about
birthright citizenship isn't real.
Yep.
So we were into the article, and I know it's wordy, and there's only a little bit left to go, so we might as well bang it out here.
So I just want to recap for the listeners that are just tuning in. So this article that Richie Rich is reading essentially says that birthright citizenship is not the way we understand it today, where anyone who crosses the border and has a child is automatically a citizen. Essentially what this is saying is that there's a small bit of a process, I'm guessing, that citizenship was determined, and it wasn't determined it was determined by whether the person had an allegiance to another country, right?
Well, and the 14th Amendment establishment was to establish the citizenship of freed slaves.
Okay.
And specifically excludes Native Americans.
Yeah.
Right? So if Native Americans are within the border of the United States, but not United States citizens, right, then just being within the territorial border isn't enough. There has to be more. So that's there was a lot of words to get like those two main points out, and then here we go. Congress further reinforced the court's interpretation by adopting new legislation granting citizenship to all tribal members in 1924. Had the 14th Amendment really granted automatic citizenship to everyone born within the borders of the United States, no such legislation would have been necessary. In the year 2024, however, advocates of the new and novel interpretation of birthright citizenship insists that the child of foreign nationals automatically become a citizen of the United States based entirely on the location of birth. This is a rather odd way of doing things. In historical practice, nearly everywhere, citizenship depends largely on the citizenship of parents or on the parents' place of birth, and not on the place where the parents happen to temporarily reside when the child is born. Thus, historically and globally, the child of foreign nationals is himself a foreign national. This is true, for instance, of children born to American nationals overseas. And that's kind of the example I gave with like Barack Obama and John McCain earlier, right? Born overseas, allegedly, right? Maybe the Hawaii birth certificate. But even then, Hawaii wasn't a state. Only in the United States does there appear to be widespread confusion about this. Of course, some libertarians or classical liberal readers might argue that such legal precedents are meaningless and that everyone deserves the legal right of citizenship. How citizenship is any sort of natural right or property right, however, remains a mystery. Has the child somehow homesteaded his citizenship? Obviously not. Has the child entered into a contract with a legitimate property owner to acquire the property of citizenship? To ask these questions is to see the absurdity of them. On the other hand, it is important to note that a lack of citizenship in any particular place does not negate anyone's property rights. Real property rights, what Rothbard called universal rights, exist regardless of one's citizenship, where he lives, or where he happens to have been born. And that's the end of the article.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty logical to me, that just because you were born on the chunk of the land that some government claims jurisdiction over doesn't mean you're a citizen thereof.
So Trump is right.
Yep, I'd say Trump is right on this one.
Riley, pro-Trump on this one?
I'll have to think about it. I'm not a huge fan of Trump, to be honest.
Neither am I.
I'm not a huge fan.
I don't like deporting a whole bunch of immigrants.
I don't either. I think it's a stupid idea. I think it's a terrible idea. But if we're going to look at the original definition of how birthright citizenship was handled, maybe Trump is right about this.
All right.
And maybe he should challenge it and see what comes of it.
But the lower courts have already said, like, it's clearly anti-constitutional. It says never been more clearly anti-constitutional. What is this man thinking?
Well, we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Guess we'll see what the higher courts say. Talking about Trump and his attack on migrants, as some people might call it. Some people are very upset about this. I've got an article headline here from Reuters. Trump imposes tariffs sanctions on Colombia after it refuses deportation flights.
Yeah. Like, we're sending them home, and they're like, yeah, we don't want them.
Yep.
What do you do with those people?
Like,
where are they citizens of now?
Yeah. So let's get into this story. It says President Donald Trump said that would be today he will impose sweeping retaliatory measures on Colombia, including tariffs and sanctions, after the South American country turned away 2 U.S. military aircraft with migrants being deported as part of the new U.S. administration's immigration crackdown. Colombia, the third largest U.S. trading partner in Latin America, swiftly responded, threatening a 50% tariff on U.S. goods. The country's leftist president, Gustavo Petro, later posted on X that he directed his trade minister to increase tariffs on U.S. imports by 25%.
Which hurts his citizens.
Yep. Yeah, that's
right. Like if Trump's imposed tariffs hurt American citizens as far as what we have to pay, imposing tariffs on American goods entering in Colombia hurts more Colombian citizens.
Indeed.
So they're both going like, I'm going to get you by hurting their own people.
Yeah.
It's just absurd.
Putting a tariff on foreign goods is kind of like putting sanctions on yourself.
Yeah, it really is. And people, I mean, the left are all about pointing this logic out now, but when Biden was doing it, they were like, we don't really care.
I guess in Trump's defense, you would say that he's not using it as a moneymaker. He's using it as a bargaining chip.
Yeah. I've already covered that. He's on record as saying that. But if the other guy doesn't back down, right, like you're trying to put enough pressure so the other guy backs down, or he calls your bluff or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if it results in like increased escalation and nobody's willing to back down, right? Like we know Trump's personality type.
Yep.
He's not going to back down.
No.
Right. And so if this leader Gustavo of Colombia is just as egocentric and headstrong as Trump, and he refuses to back down, then the bargaining chip is a wash, and it's just going to escalate into bad things on both sides forever, or at least 4 years until we get another crack at a presidency.
Well, we might find out what that looks like. Colombia is the second Latin American nation to refuse U.S. military deportation flights. Trump's punitive action demonstrated his more muscular U.S. foreign policy and his renewed willingness to force countries to bend to his will.
See? He's an egotistical strongman.
Trump wrote on Truth Social that Petro's refusal to accept the flights jeopardized U.S. national security.
I'm not buying that either.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Yeah, I
national
don't buy it
security is a weak argument. That's
It's
like
a
what you
very
use
weak
when you're all out of excuses.
I mean, that was his reasoning for like trying to take over Canada and Greenland too. We need it for national security. Really?
Did he say that?
Basically.
I must have missed that part. That's pretty funny.
At least Greenland.
The retaliatory measures include imposing 25% tariffs on all Colombian goods coming into the U.S., which will go up to 50% in 1 week, a travel ban and visa revocations on Colombian government officials, and emergency treasury, banking, and financial sanctions.
The CIA planes carrying the Colombian cocaine will get through just fine, though.
I wonder if that means my coffee's going to get expensive.
Oh, probably.
You don't buy domestic coffee? Go with the Colombian stuff?
It's all imported. A lot of it comes from Africa.
All right.
And other South American countries, but some of it's from Colombia.
I'm from Hawaii, so like when I really need coffee, I just have my mom send me up like the 100% Kona blends.
Oh man, Kona's good beans.
Yeah, it is.
Oh man, that sounds. I'd love to try that one day.
Remind me, I may have a bag that is not in use, Riley, and I will gift it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, when I run out of good coffee, one of the go-tos that I get is a 10% Kona blend that you can get at the grocery store. So I figured that way at least it's 10% real coffee.
No. It's like, hey,
everything
Ma,
else there is just garbage.
Send that care package. Chocolate-covered macadamia nuts and 100% Kona coffee.
Oh, man. That sounds good. Trump said he would also direct enhanced border inspections of Colombian nationals and cargo. These measures are just the beginning, he wrote. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regard to the acceptance and return of the criminals they forced into the United States. He later posted a picture of himself on Truth Social in a pinstripe suit and a fedora in front of a sign reading FAFO, a common slang acronym for F around to find out.
So he's dressed like a gangster on Truth Social.
Yep.
Did someone toss him a Tommy gun just for the photo op too?
Yeah, like a zoot suit gangster, I guess.
A pinstripe with the fedora, man. That's gangsta.
Oh wow.
Or hard R. That's gangster.
America will no longer be lied to nor taken advantage of, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in a statement adding that Petro had authorized these flights but then canceled his authorization when the planes were in the air.
Well, you can withdraw consent at any time, I guess.
Yeah, you can.
Yep. Anyway, it just goes on to say this is all part of Trump's sweeping crackdown on immigration.
Yeah, again, like he got a lot of things right in the beginning, and from the libertarian perspective, like really fumbled it on the immigration issue. Hard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well,
You can't have everything in the world, I guess.
Well, yeah, and again, it's too much pressure to expect that just because he did some libertarian things that he would do all the libertarian things.
Yeah.
Because then he would have just been the libertarian guy,
Yeah.
and he wasn't.
Something tells me we got more of that coming.
Oh, yeah.
Guess he got pretty buddy-buddy with good old Bill Gates.
And I was talking to someone else, same buddy of mine yesterday, about the libertarian vote for Trump. The deal is concluded, right? He bought your vote. He freed Ross, and now we can attack him again.
Right.
Right? Like that's, that was the agreement. We'll vote for you if you free Ross Ulbricht. And we voted for him, or some of you guys voted for him, and he freed Ross Ulbricht, and so that's done. Now we can go back on the offensive of calling him a moron and a strong man and all the other nefarious things that he is for all the bad stuff that he does wrong.
Well, I was going to do so regardless of whether he freed Ross or not.
Well, good for you, but some libertarians may feel like they still owe him some allegiance because he freed Ross.
I mean, I understand that perspective, but I don't owe this man any allegiance. He's a tyrant.
Yes.
Nope. He might get a bit of admiration if he does something as drastic as ending the Federal Reserve.
Sure.
Or compulsory education. Either one of those.
Well, he's not going to end compulsory education. This is another thing, right? He's just going to send it back to the states where it should be based on their constitution.
Yeah. Well, if he ends it at a federal level.
Yeah.
That's one step.
Yeah, but the states, the states aren't going to be like, oh, no federal schools. I guess we're not going to provide public schools. Like, they still want it.
Oh, yeah.
They'll just be more responsible for it.
People wouldn't know what to do without compulsory education.
Right. It's not going away. It's just not going to be, at the federal level.
Government-sponsored daytime
babysitting.
babysitters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Good old indoctrination camp.
I think that's what Mark called it, right? Middle-class babysitting.
Middle-class daycare babysitters.
There you go.
Yep, that's about right.
But if he does it, right, well, golf clap, like, good, shut it down, give it back to the states. The shrinking the government, good, expanding the government, bad. So when he does stuff that shrinks it or returns it to the states, good, praise, golf clap here and there. And then when he does something dumb, like still go on the tech.
Give him a couple snaps.
Give him the snaps, okay. Jazz fingers?
Yeah.
All right.
Good job, Trump.
But we'll see.
We will.
We will see. So, Riley brought a story he wanted to talk about where the Air Force removed course material about women and black pilots.
The Tuskegee Airmen?
Yep.
Yep, that's right. And this story is by CBS News.
A reputable news source.
Thank you, Ryan.
Lesson plans that include videos of the Tuskegee Airmen, groundbreaking black pilots known for their service during World War II, and the Women Air Force Service Pilots, or WASPs, the female World War II pilots who were vital in ferrying warplanes for the military, have been temporarily removed from the U.S. Air Force curriculum, U.S. Air Force officials say. The lesson plans for basic training that have to do with diversity are under review to determine if they comply with an executive order from President Trump that aims to end diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within the federal government.
Oh man, see, and this is unfortunately why you need DEI to begin with in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm one of the few people on, as a show host that's like, I'm fine if companies choose to do DEI because the alternative has been so bad for so long, right? And now you go like, well, we're getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you're wiping out history. You're wiping out valid history of women and black folks in the military doing, good things in their perspective, right? And you go like, well, if we didn't have this DEI, then we'd only talk about the white folks, and this is proof. Right? As soon as they waive the DEI requirements, like, well, let's just get rid of all the women and black folks.
Oh, that assumes, though, that this got put into the curriculum as part of DEI.
No, but it proves why DEI is necessary, because when you remove DEI, they're trying to remove it from the curriculum.
Huh. An Air Force official told CBS News immediate steps were taken to remove curriculum that is now under review to ensure compliance with executive orders issued by the president. Historical videos were interwoven into U.S. Air Force and Space Force curriculum and were not the direct focus of course removal actions. Additional details on curriculum updates will be provided when they're available. In a statement to CBS News on Sunday, Lieutenant General Brian S. Robinson, Air Education and Training Commander, said the block that included videos is being revised because it included DEI material and emphasized that no curriculum or content highlighting the honor and valor of the Tuskegee Airmen or women Air Force service pilots has been removed from basic military training. He said the revision, which would adjust the curriculum to align with the President DEI executive action, began on January 23rd, and that no airmen or guardians will miss this block of instruction.
So it is or is not being removed? Because it sounded there like they're still leaving it in for now while it's under review.
That is what it sounds like, right?
It sure sounds that way. But it's hard to tell because, I don't know.
It's also not a DEI issue, right? It's a historical fact.
Right.
But again, it highlights, the necessity of DEI in some cases where they try to whitewash historical facts, and what what those folks claim about, the whitewashing and the patriarchy and all that from the history books, right? Like it's there, it happened. We should talk about it.
Yep. The revised training, which focuses on the documented historic legacy and decorated valor with which these units and airmen fought for our nation in World War II and beyond, will continue on 27th of January, Robinson said. The Air Force has not removed these airmen's incredible heritage from any training. Their personal examples of service, sacrifice, and combat effectiveness are illustrative of the core values, character, and warrior ethos necessary to be an airman and guardian. The problem may not be with the historical videos themselves, but that they were used in Air Force basic military training DEI coursework. However, the lack of clearer guidance has sent the Air Force and other agencies scrambling to take the broadest approach to what content is removed to make sure they are in compliance. Among the many executive orders since his January 20th inauguration, Mr. Trump took aim at rooting out diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI programs within the federal government.
This is also one of the cases I made before, right, of why it may be important for some organizations to have DEI in place, and that's to secure an opportunity for the future, right? If you want women and minorities to apply for certain positions, and because maybe they'll be the best at them, right, then they have to see a path to it. And if you remove like the women and the minority presence, right, in those fields, then they don't see a path to it and they won't even try. And then you may not be getting the best candidates you have. You'll get the best candidates now, but you won't in the future. But if you show them a path, in those fields, like I used the example in the past of women in STEM, right, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right, if you show them a path, they might be able to do well. And that's not saying that immediately they're going to be better than the men, but that in the future, as more women start to enter those fields, as more women and minority enter the Air Force, because they see a path to success within it, right, then you have a larger pool of candidates from which to derive the best candidate from.
I don't know if that really holds up. To me, that it's just tweaking an incentive. Is artificially creating an incentive.
But it's been artificially decreated by not giving them a path to it, right? In a white male dominated society,
ableist society, I imagine.
That may be true, or that may have just been the way things worked out best for people back then. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about
white
DEI?
male dominated society worked really well for white males?
You think DEI is good or a bad thing? Call us here at Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day.
From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm Mitch McCann. A looming trade war between the United States and Colombia has been avoided after Colombia agreed to allow its citizens removed from the U.S. to arrive in American military planes. It follows a dramatic back and forth between Colombia's president and Donald Trump, who threatened to impose significant trade sanctions and visa restrictions. The White House released a statement late Sunday saying that Colombia had agreed to all of the president's terms after Donald Trump threatened significant sanctions on Colombia, including 50% tariffs and visa sanctions on government officials. The disagreement started after Mr. Trump claimed that Colombia's president was not allowing plane loads of Colombian citizens deported from the US to land back in their home country. Earlier, President Gustavo Petro had said that a migrant is not a criminal and must be treated with the dignity that a human being deserves. That is why I returned the US military planes that were carrying Colombian migrants. The US is Colombia's largest trading partner, and hours later, its foreign minister announced, "We have overcome the impasse with the United States government." Leaders have gathered at the United Nations to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. The discovery of the Nazi camp towards the end of World War II remains one of the most powerful symbols of the horrors of the Holocaust. Sally Patterson reports from New York.
The ceremony remembered the 6 million people murdered because they were Jewish, as well as Roma and Sinti victims, people with disabilities, and LGBTQI groups. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told the General Assembly that remembrance is not only a moral act, but a call to action. A key theme in this year's commemoration was the rise in anti-Semitism around the world. That's at least in part linked to the Israel-Hamas war.
And the United Nations Security Council on Monday pledged its full support for UN peacekeeping in the Democratic Republic of Congo as fighting in the DRC intensified in recent days. In a statement, the Council says attacks against peacekeepers may constitute war crimes. 6 UN peacekeepers have been killed since the fighting with M23 rebels escalated. Jody Jacobs has more from the UN in New York.
The UN Security Council has condemned in the strongest terms ongoing advances by the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On Sunday, the Council held an urgent meeting following the deaths of 6 UN peacekeepers. In a statement released on Monday morning, the Council called on Rwanda and the DRC to return to diplomatic talks to achieve a lasting and peaceful resolution. The Council has also demanded that the ongoing offensive and advances towards Goma stop immediately. As the fighting intensifies, the UN has now also been forced to temporarily relocate non-essential staff from the area.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. Give us a call. Get your thoughts on the air. The phone number to us here in the studio is 603-283-6160. And in the studio with me tonight, you've got
Riley.
And Richie Rich.
And just now we were talking about DEI and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And
we covered a lot tonight. DEI, citizenship.
Yeah, we definitely covered a lot.
Pardons.
Yeah, preemptive pardons. Ross Ulbricht's pardon.
And I think the update to the story we had was that, the trainings are now including the history that was removed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like they went ahead and removed it for review and then put it right back in.
They saw the error of their ways.
Yeah.
Whoops. DEI is here to stay.
I guess they just checking themselves because King Trumpykins is on the tear.
Yeah, well, King Trumpykins just has an ego and can't take having his ego challenged,
Yeah. And again, it's strongman leadership.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Before we move on, let's just talk about this real quick because this came up during the week as well, and probably going to go nowhere. But some Republican House member introduced legislation to give Trump a third term. Anybody? Did you see that?
I did see that one.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Okay. And it's kind of funny. This is the one thing about Trump, and I'm going to tangent real quick because he does bizarre things, and then we laugh at him, and then we make fun of him, and then it sticks, right? And then generations from now go like, well, how did the Gulf of Mexico change to the Gulf of America? And the answer is because Trump said so.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's it. He said it, and then he started putting it in documents, and we're going to make fun of those documents, and eventually we'll just start satirically calling it the Gulf of America, and some kid's going to hear it, and they're just going to repeat it, and then our grandkids will just know it as the Gulf of America. Yep. So it's dangerous territory to make fun of this stuff.
And then when it's far enough removed, somebody will write a history book that says, there was some great event that happened.
But the great event was he just wrote it down on a document once, and we just used it from there.
That's right. We saw how it happened. It was just
right.
Trump just trolling the world.
Right. So when the thing comes up, we're well, they're going to introduce legislation for him to be authorized to serve a third term. I was okay, we can make fun of that because will it pass? Probably not. But what if it does?
I'd give it at least a 40%.
Okay. Well, what's the Polymarket rate on that? Is it up on Polymarket?
I don't know. I've never used Polymarket, but
I've
never
really
used
need to start.
Polymarket either.
Okay, I've never used it.
This sounds right up my alley, though.
You got to have crypto because that's how you pay for stuff on there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I've never used it. I don't have any money in Polymarket, but I do reference it on occasion when I want to see what the odds of something are.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can check Polymarket.
It's creepy good at predicting things, right?
It's a predictive market. It's like the collective consciousness of bettors, and that's how you get the odds.
Yeah.
Anywho, so if they introduce it, the only way this is my satirical take on this, the only way I can see that the Democrats jump on board and have this thing passed is we'll finally get the showdown between Donald Trump and Barack Obama. Because if Trump's eligible for a third term,
so is Obama.
So is Obama.
Yeah.
And if anybody can beat him, besides Joe Biden in a fair fight.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think you bring Barack Obama out of retirement. You put him head to head against Trump. He was the one who was making fun of Trump initially when Trump said he was going to run. Yeah. And this is what we got.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see. If we can get the Democrats on board with allowing the third term just to get Barack Obama versus Donald Trump for the third term showdown, I'm all for that.
Okay. That sounds like a fun show.
Right. But again, if they do it, it's going to open up third terms across the board and then fourth terms, and it'll be a mess. And it'll be because the history book will say, well, back in 2025, this one guy, right, introduced the legislation, and that's all it took. It was unanimously passed or bipartisan support, and that's how we ended up where we're at.
To answer your question, the Polymarket odds on will Trump repeal presidential term limits is at 5%.
Okay, so if you think it's 40%, it's a good time to get in.
Yeah.
Because even if it goes up, you can get out. You can get out and still make some money on it if it goes up.
Yeah,
we'll see. But again, Polymarket doesn't think it's going to happen. But now that they know that this will bring Barack Obama out of retirement, let's see if we can bump that number up.
Yeah, it's got action. There's 100,000 in volume today.
There you go. So we'll see. All right. Moving on. That's all I had on that. Riley, are elephants people? Do elephants have rights?
That's a really good question. So, I don't know if an elephant is a person, but
they can paint.
Okay, but how does it make them a person?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
How do we determine if someone or something has rights, though? And what is a right?
Even deeper question. I don't know if we want to get into that. But elephant, not a person, because not a human, right? And we can at least say that subsets, different species.
Yeah,
I would say not a person.
Not a person. Okay.
Not a person.
Is this something that we have to adjudicate in court though, or is our opinion enough to suffice?
Well, I don't know, because there are conflicting definitions of person.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. The corporate personhood.
Colloquially, it's used as just human or average human. I don't know.
Well, then good thing it went to the courts.
Yeah.
Elephants can't sue to leave the zoo. Court rules. So the courts have decided. The authorities in Colorado. Colorado's highest court on Tuesday ruled that 5 elderly elephants don't have legal standing to sue to leave a local zoo because they're not human.
Wow.
Who was petitioning this? Were the elephants like, no, please let us?
Yeah, did they fill out their own paperwork?
Right. Yeah.
Did they call the lawyer's office?
It was an animal rights group. An animal rights group had sought to have the African elephants Missy, Kimba, Lucy, Lulu, and Jumbo freed from Cheyenne Mountain Zoo and moved to an elephant sanctuary, citing a legal process known as habeas corpus that allows individuals in custody to challenge their detention or incarceration in court.
Well, I think that's, I don't think they honor that anymore anyways.
No, I'm pretty sure they don't. I mean, Lincoln suspended it during the the war between the states.
Well, that's just because there was an emergency. Oh, wait, there's always 20-something emergencies.
There's always emergencies.
Going
the government
on at any given time.
Power
I'm pretty sure if you look at the history, no emergency has been repealed. And so for the last 200 years, the United States has been perpetually in a state of emergency of some kind.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I read a thing about this, and it's there have been periods of time when it wasn't, but
okay.
But for all of modern history since the First World War, certainly.
Yeah. Or more than 200 of the 250 years of existence has been under some sort of state of emergency.
Yep.
Okay. And my question would be okay, so these activists want these elephants freed, and they decide to sue on behalf of the elephants, as opposed to going to the holders of the elephants and going hey, is there any chance you can set them free? Or, hey, is there any chance that these elephants are for sale? Mm-hmm. Or, hey, let's make a deal. What's your price? We're very passionate about this. We want those elephants for our own, to put them in the sanctuary,
Well, animal rights activists might have an aversion to paying for a living being because it's too close to chattel slavery or something.
Yeah, but there are individuals out there that have bought chattel slaves, like real human beings, mm-hmm. for the sole purpose of setting them free.
Yep.
And they don't question the cost. They just go I've got $50,000, and
no, I agree with
now
you.
one more person is free.
Yeah, if I really wanted those elephants out of there, that's how I would approach it.
It seems like the voluntary way to do it.
Yep.
The Colorado Supreme Court ruled 6-0 in favor of an earlier district court's decision, saying that from a legal standpoint, the question boils down to whether an elephant is a person. It bears noting that the narrow legal question before the court does not turn on our regard for these majestic animals generally, or these 5 elephants specifically. State Supreme Court Justice Maria Birkenkotter wrote in her ruling, but she added, because an elephant is not a person, the elephant here do not have standing to bring a habeas corpus claim under Colorado laws.
Imagine that.
Imagine having to hear that, go really? They appealed it to this level? Yeah. All right, I guess we'll decide whether an elephant's a person or not.
That's a good thing.
Stamped for all time.
Good thing we get taxed so that we can pay judges to do that.
Exactly.
To rule unanimously.
Yep.
Luckily, this is only state, and unless you're a citizen of Colorado, you've avoided this one.
Yep.
The Non-Human Rights Project, a U.S.-based animal advocacy organization, had submitted affidavits from 7 animal biologists in support of its case. So 7 biologists went, yeah, no, elephant's totally a person, dude. Like, we got you.
What?
Right?
I mean, to be fair, there's a history of scientists in this country that are for sale and will say whatever you want them to for the right price.
7 animal biologists submitted affidavits in support of its case. They explained that the elephants share numerous cognitive capacities with humans, including self-awareness, empathy, and the ability to learn and communicate. In the wild, elephants travel for many miles each day in complex social groups, the experts said. Christopher Berry, the executive director for the Non-Human Rights Project, described the Supreme Court's judgments as alarming, saying that it diminishes the court's power to protect the rights to liberty when it is violated.
You imagine dropping one of these guys off in like 1680 in America, and like when they refer to the natives as savages and like referred to them as almost not even human.
He's a witch. Yeah, he's a witch. Burn him.
You imagine the level of offended these people would be.
Oh man, they would be. But I'm really glad that we've come a long way as a people to recognize that the Native Americans aren't savages and they're actually human.
Yep, I like to think that the all men are created equal idea
I like to think
has done
that
a lot
too.
to change things.
Yeah.
Yeah, except right after that, they went black people 3/5.
Yeah, it's 3/5 though.
It's not equal.
Well,
3/5 does not equal 1.
I agree.
It's a math problem.
Baby steps, right?
All right. We've overcome that one. Thank you, DEI.
Yep, thank you.
Regardless of today's regardless of today's result, support for recognizing legal rights for animals continues to grow, Berry said in an email Tuesday. He said the rights group is exploring ways to proceed in the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo case. In a statement, Cheyenne Mountain Zoo described the lawsuit as frivolous, noting that the rights group has attempted and lost similar suits against several other reputable zoos. While we're happy with this outcome, we are disappointed that it ever came to this, the zoo said. For the past 19 months, we've been subjected to their misrepresented attacks, and we've wasted valuable time and money responding to them in court and in the court of public opinion. A New York court reached a similar decision over an Asian elephant at the Bronx Zoo named Happy in 2022. In another case brought by the animal rights group, 2 New York judges expressed a dissenting opinion in support of Happy's right to liberty, Berry said. So not unanimous in New York.
Interesting.
As we've seen in other movements, early losses are to be expected, Berry said. While courts are often influenced by decisions in other states, every state has its own independent body of law. You got to work the system from the inside, right? You got to go to law school, become a lawyer, pay your dues, get a judgeship somewhere, get promoted to district or Supreme Court of your local area, and then bam, unleash your activism then.
There you go.
As an elephant?
No.
That'd be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. Like Paddington. Where is it? The group has 2 other cases pending on appeal. Berry said one in Michigan on behalf of chimpanzees at a roadside zoo and one in Hawaii on behalf of 2 elephants at a zoo. There's only like one zoo. Wildlife advocates, we call it the zoo. Wildlife advocates have long argued that keeping animals in captivity can cause suffering even in facilities that aim to teach visitors about ecology and daily care. A woman was killed recently by an elephant at a venue in Thailand advertised as an ethical sanctuary, shining a light on the moral issue and potential dangers surrounding tours that involve the animals in Australia last year. In Australia last year, a koala sanctuary stopped offering cuddles with the furry animal amid growing concern about the risk of selfie-style tourists' encounters to animal welfare. A big part of our challenge is simply overcoming the inertia of the status quo, and that requires time and education, Berry said, As we overcome that inertia, more and more judges will find the motivation and courage to rule in our favor. End of the article.
All right. I don't know.
Does it come down to reciprocity, Riley, as far as who you extend rights to?
What do you mean by that question?
Well, they say, the thing always comes up about like vicious animals, right? You can say the tiger has rights, but it will attack you.
Right.
Right. And so we don't grant rights to, vicious animals because their nature is to attack. We don't grant rights to food because, hey, we got to eat, right? Beef is delicious. So if they were to be able to articulate rights back to us, right? Like, no, I'm totally not going to attack you, bro. Right. Then, maybe we go like, okay, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to put you on the list.
I don't know.
You can do other things in society. Can you get a job?
Tiger just acts how Tiger is programmed to act.
Right.
Well, that's the point. We don't extend it to those, but if they could, right?
Yeah, I guess if they could.
Dogs have jobs, right? There's police dogs everywhere. There's, what do you call those? The rescue dogs and whatnot. They're able to be employed. They can collect the paycheck somewhere. They're not harmful.
I don't know if that gives them rights per se.
All right.
Anyways, right now we're going to go to the phones where we've got David in New Mexico. What's on your mind tonight, David?
Bunch of stuff. So what you just said about the police dog, since you hate cops, why don't you take the
I don't hate cops.
It's just I'm setting it up. It doesn't mean whether you factually do or you factually don't. I'm just setting up a little narrative here. I'm laying the groundwork, all right? So since you hate cops, where was I? Since you hate cops...
That's where you were. That's exactly how far you got the first time.
Since you hate cops, why don't you seize the opportunity to condemn them for sending a poor, dumb animal against some dude with a handgun because you're too scared yourself to go against that dude with a handgun, so you're going to send the dog in there first.
Okay. Yeah. I condemn the cops for sending the dog in first.
I condemn the cops for sending the dog in first. Now you happy?
Because I hate cops.
Yep, me too. Not the hating cops part, though. I just think they made a bad decision. We all make bad decisions.
Let's go to the next one. If Injuns ain't savages, Riley, then what do you call...
and he said Indians, so we know we're talking about Native Americans, not people from India.
Right. There you go.
That's right.
See?
Besides, the Indians say Indians. They don't say Indians in all cases. Lots of them
because they're not Indians. They're not from India.
Well, sometimes they claim to be Indians or Indians, so it gets confusing. Anyway,
that's why. Remove the confusion. Just call them Indians.
Riley. If Indians ain't savages, then what do you call Native Americans that committed a human sacrifice on hundreds of thousands of their own people?
I wouldn't say that's savagery. I'd say that's misguided religiosity.
I'd call them eugenicists.
That too.
Isn't it rather savage, if not barbarian, behavior, though, Riley?
I could show you worse things that
I think
white
it's
Europeans
very evil
have done.
behavier, but white Europeans have done the same thing.
Yeah, we're going to seize on the opportunity to attack. So you see how this works here, people? Well, somebody wants to condemn an egregious behavior by one group of people who generally consider to be a minority, and then immediately some dude like Mr. Dude on the first chair there comes and then defends the poor minority and finds something wrong with the white man.
I could point out atrocities done by any culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. So why bother?
But does that make everyone savages, or does that make the minority culture less savage?
Wait a minute. Y'all getting ahead of yourself. How come?
Why are you affecting that accent all of a sudden?
That's right. How come? I'm channeling some people that I used to know, eh? So how come when a dude points out some egregious behavior...
See, when a dude loves another dude...
Yeah. Wait a minute. Shut up there, Mr. Funky Beard. So how come you feel the need... You can't just discuss what is brought up. You feel the need to deflect that argument and put it all back on the white man. How come?
Just to show that it doesn't have to do with the group that these individuals belong to, and the only individual I blame is the one that's actually sacrificing babies or whatever.
remember those tests in high school where you take them and you read the paragraph, and then it says, what is the main point of this paragraph? And then you read the paragraph and you check either A, B, C, or D, in some cases E. And the main
E was usually all of the above or
paragraph-
none of the above.
Yeah,
that's right. It's been a long time. And so the main point of the
Take my word for it.
paragraph, what the question was posed, it was put upon the table that that Riley had previously said that Indians are not savages, and then I put on the table in reply to Mr. Riley that what then would you call a group of people that committed human sacrifice on hundreds of thousands of people?
Riley answered you directly.
Wait a minute.
No. Riley answered you directly.
I did. I said they're
Wait,
not
wait,
evil.
no,
they're not
but the rest
savages.
it's not just Riley here on the radio at the table. There's
But I want to
three
make
of
it
you.
clear that you asked a direct question of Riley, and he answered you directly, and then you moved on without even responding to his answer.
No. You're wrong. You're wrong. You on the radio? Are you on the radio?
I hope so.
Okay. Well, I
I'm not
hope
responsible for these decisions.
That's right. In light of the circumstances, I hope you are not, like you weren't last night. What the hell happened last night anyway? So the presumably there are three. Not just Riley sitting at that table. There are two more of you, and then presumably you are on the radio, and there are millions and millions and millions and millions of other people listening. And so I'm not just talking to Riley. I'm talking to everybody who is present in this little forum of yours.
But you asked Riley directly. You made sure to use him by name and say, "Hey, Riley, I have a question for you." Then he answered your question directly.
Trying to present colorful discussion. He makes a mistake. One, he didn't take into consideration that splitting hairs, beard hairs, Mr. What's your name again? I forgot. No loss. Anyway, Mr. Yellow Shirt.
I am Yulaw, and I will be the one.
Mr. Funky Beard, Yellow Shirt, I forgot to take into consideration that dude is sitting there and is going to split hairs on everything we say, and so therefore...
I'm not splitting hairs. I'm saying you asked Riley a question, he answered your question,
No, I did not
Stu
ask Riley a
chimed in, and you didn't like Stu's
I
response,
mentioned his
and
name.
totally disregarded Riley's answer.
Mentioned his name.
When you address one of us, you're going to get a response from the person you addressed.
Exactly.
That's just courteous.
Well, that would be nice, except I got a response from the other two of you, too.
I didn't answer you at all.
Well, I'm curious, David.
What?
Back onto the subject that we were originally speaking.
Are you also questioning?
Do you consider Native Americans savages?
Let's see. Well, it would be fun to go down that road, but unfortunately, presently they don't really qualify as savages, so no.
Okay.
So you also would not call them savages?
Not presently. I said presently. You remember I used the word presently?
I do.
Thanks for the call, David. If you didn't get in tonight, you can call us on Saturday. We'll be back.
We should be there.
Phone number is
Hopefully.
603-283-6160. This is Ben, Free Talk Live.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with